Chapter 303. How strong do you think you are? You even killed your own cousin in the qualifiers. Even now, the injuries on Hinata's body haven't completely healed. I thought you would be very strong, but you're just like this. When you meet someone weaker than you, you're so high and insurmountable. But when you met someone stronger than you, you actually became so weak and weak? Is this your pride? It's a bit cheap. Naruto walked step by step to Niji's side. His pace was very slow, as if he was walking casually in spring. He didn't realize that there was an enemy in front of him. When he arrived in front of Niji, Naruto slowly squatted down, looked at Niji's eyes, and said, "In your eyes, Hinata is the representative of weakness and can be bullied, so you can be so cruel to her. Now, in my eyes, you're also a weak person. Can I beat you to the point that you can't get up for half a month?" Naruto's words were very casual, but Niji's heart tightened. Is he going to be seriously injured by this guy in front of him, and then struggle to survive in a hospital bed? Niji's mind began to imagine the scene he might encounter. Is he going to be besieged with pity again? He has worked hard for so many years, and he felt that he was strong enough that he didn't need others to pity him, but now, in the eyes of Naruto, he's still weak? He told Hinata again and again that her nature is weak and not suitable to be a ninja, but now, what is this feeling in his heart? What is this faint tingling and shortness of breath? Niji's mind kept thinking about the words he knew, and he found a word that was so consistent with his current situation. That was fear. He was afraid of the yellow-haired ninja in front of him who looked a little rustic. Opening his mouth, Niji wanted to shout, he wanted to expel the disgusting feeling in his heart with the vibration of his vocal cords. However, Niji's mouth couldn't make a sound. Instead, his breathing became more rapid, and the rapid breathing even made Niji's head a little dizzy. However, Naruto, who wanted to attack him just now, slowly stood up at this moment. The dangerous chakra on his body was also retracted back into his body, as if he has returned to his original appearance. I'm not like you. I know that no matter how strong I am, I shouldn't bully the weak. Now, you've lost. After saying this, Niji's body collapsed on the ground like a puppet with its last thread cut off. Naruto looked at Hayate Gecko, who was standing next to him. Obviously, he wants Hayate Gecko to come up and announce his victory. Hayate Gecko also understood Naruto's meaning. He hurriedly ran to Niji's side and roughly checked Niji's body. He found that Niji's eyes were dull at the moment. Obviously, he had no desire to fight, so Hayate Gecko nodded and called the medical ninjas of Kiba Hospital who were prepared around the venue. He asked them to carry Niji away, then walked to the side of Naruto, raised Naruto's hand and said to the audience, "The second battle. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto." Hearing Hayate Gecko announcing his victory, Naruto also nodded and returned to his waiting area. However, Hyuga Hayashi, who had been paying attention to Niji in the stands, seemed to have decided something. He took his little daughter and walked towards the place where the medical ninjas of Kiba Hospital gathered. On the other side of the stands, where the ninjas of Sunagakure gathered, it was a different scene. Countless sand slowly surged on the ground, and Gaara's eyes were bloodshot. It seemed that his mental state was very unstable. He said to himself in a somewhat deranged manner, It's him, it's him. He and I are the same kind of people, hee hee, ha ha ha, if I kill him, it must be very valuable, right? Kill him." Looking at Gaara, who was immersed in his own world, Temari looked at her youngest brother with some worry. Because of Shikaku and various other reasons, her brother named Gaara has always been in a very unstable mental state, and he is even very bloodthirsty. Although she was his sister, and she hoped that she could help him, her brother didn't recognize anyone when he went crazy. She didn't have the courage to go forward and persuade him. The son of the Hokage, who was fighting with the Byakugan just now, has a similar aura to Gaara. Presumably, this is why my younger brother said something like, "the same kind of people." What was going on with the fathers in this world? Each and every one of them actually allowed their children to become such a pillar of strength. Temari's heart was extremely dissatisfied. In the arena, Hayate Gecko seemed to be ready to announce the start of the next battle, but looking around the preparation area, he didn't seem to find the person he should be looking for. He could only hurriedly go to Watergate's side and whisper to Watergate for a while. Fourth Kazekage, who was very silent, seemed to be interested. He moved his head slightly closer to Watergate and asked Watergate, "Hokage-sama, what happened?" Watergate obviously didn't expect that Fourth Kazekage would pay attention to him, but he still said to Fourth Kazekage, "The candidates for the next battle should be your child Gaara and our Woodleaf's Uchiha Sasuke," but Hayate Gecko didn't find Uchiha Sasuke's figure, so he came to ask me if I want to disqualify Uchiha Sasuke and let your child directly enter the next round. Fourth Kazekage seemed to be very generous and waved his hand and said to Watergate, "Uchiha. Is it Uchiha's orphan?" "Hokage-sama, it's very valuable to be able to see the performance of Uchiha's orphan. Although he is indeed late, why don't you give me face and move his battle with my child to a little later? I'm still a little interested in the strength of Uchiha's orphan." Since Kazekage has already said this, Watergate naturally had to give face to Kazekage, so he said to Hayate Gecko, "For the time being, let's postpone the battle with Uchiha Sasuke, and start the next battle." Chapter 304. After receiving Watergate's instructions, Hayate Gecko also went to the middle of the venue and announced to all the audience that Sasuke and Gaara's exam was temporarily postponed. Since Yondaime Hokage, the leader of Woodleaf, and Kazekage from Sand Ninja had no opinion, how can a group of people who came to watch the fun be dissatisfied? So such a first decision was also recognized by everyone, allowing Sasuke to keep the opportunity to continue the exam. The next match was between Shikamaru Nara and Temari, and Shino Aburame and Toth. Although Nangongja knew these ninjas of Naruto's generation, to be honest, their relationship was not so close. Knowing that it was their match, Nangongja had no interest in continuing to watch. He turned and left the venue of the third Chunin exam. Just as he walked out of the entrance of the exam venue, a voice called behind Nangongja, "Uncle Nangong, wait a moment." As soon as Nangongja turned back, Sakura's cherry-colored hair appeared in Nangongja's field of vision. Seemingly a little curious, Nangongja asked Sakura, "What's wrong? You have an exam later. It's not good to come out and look for me now." It seems that what Nangongja said was quite reasonable. Sakura's face had a trace of unnatural embarrassment, but she still forced herself to calm down. She curiously said to Nangongja, "Uncle, do you know where Sasuke went? It's obviously time for his exam, but he hasn't come yet." Fortunately, Kazekage pleaded with Hokage-sama, otherwise, Sasuke would really lose the qualification to take the exam. Sure enough, Sakura still cared about Sasuke very much. Nangongja knew a little about Sakura's situation, but Nangongja, a guy who has never been in love, really couldn't say whether Sakura's obsession with Sasuke was right or wrong, so he could only acquiesce to Sakura's feelings. Sasuke. If there is no accident, it should be Kakashi who took Sasuke away. I seem to have seen Sasuke and Kakashi at the door before. Kakashi was carrying a big bag in his hand. Presumably, the place where he went was not so close to Woodleaf. This time, it's estimated that he was late because of some delay on the road. But don't worry, Kakashi is still a very powerful ninja. He won't let Sasuke encounter any danger. A girl in love is always so easy to imagine. An extremely easy to understand lateness, in the heart of a girl in love, may directly arrange a variety of tedious episodes for you. Hearing Nangongja's words, Sakura seemed to be relieved and said to Nangongja, "That's good. By the way, Nangong-san, why did you leave now? There are still several rounds of the exam to continue. If you leave now, you will miss a lot of things." Sakura's doubts are of course. After all, according to the process of the third exam of the Chunin exam, almost one-third of the progress has not been completed. It is indeed a bit strange to leave now. Nangongzhi left because he felt that the battle after was actually the same thing. There was nothing particularly worthy of attention. Can you expect a group of genin to teach a ninja the experience and strategy of fighting? Another reason is that Nangongzhi felt that the enemy has been impatient. This Chunin exam hindered Woodleaf's strength too much, so the defense around Woodleaf directly entered a low point. This is a very simple plot, but no one has a way to alleviate it. Woodleaf's rich and powerful people came to the third exam of the Chunin exam. Even the Kazekage of Sand Ninja came. Shouldn't Woodleaf be equipped with the necessary personnel to ensure the safety of the venue? Woodleaf has so many people, and there are only a few high-end combat power. The two Hokages, Watergate and Yuan Fei, must appear in the exam venue to show Woodleaf's importance to the exam. Some of the top jonins in Woodleaf, such as Kakashi, Guy, and Kurenai, are the instructors of the Chunin exam. How can they not be there for their own disciples' battle? Needless to say, Ino Shikacho has been very close to each other for generations. How can Shikamaru's parents and uncles not be there for the exam? Therefore, in addition to the ninjas hidden in the Umbu, Konoha only has a few big and small cats left, and the real power on the table is actually only a few people like Nangongzhi and Jiraiya who haven't been completely exposed. In the ninja world, the real combat power is never the Chunin and Genin, but the battle between Jonin. Only when there is victory between Jonin and Jonin can there be victory on the battlefield. Nangongzhi now wants to meet with Jiraiya and stare at several important places in Woodleaf, so that when there are foreign enemies invading, they can react and stop them. But how can Nangongzhi say these things to Sakura? Even if he says it, what's the use? So Nangongzhi can only say a few words to Sakura, saying that he doesn't like such a noisy environment, and so on, and left the Chunin exam venue under Sakura's interception. Before the Chunin exam began, Nangongzhi and Jiraiya met and roughly finalized the meeting place. Nangongzhi also rushed directly to the meeting place. But after arriving, he didn't find Jiraiya's figure at all. Instead, the street was very empty, not even a shadow. Although he is not very familiar with Jiraiya, Nangongzhi knows that Jiraiya is a very trustworthy person. Since Jiraiya didn't wait for him at the designated place, he must have encountered something that was holding him back. He can only wait for Jiraiya's arrival slowly in place. In a small restaurant next to him that was still open, Nangongzhi also ordered something, then kept staring at the empty street in front of him. The owner of the restaurant was naturally very curious about why Nangongzhi came to eat in the restaurant during the Chunin exam, but he didn't refuse the business that came to his door. After all, some people don't like such a noisy place. Isn't the owner of the restaurant the most obvious example? After serving Nangongzhi some snacks and tea, the owner also retreated to his rest place after greeting him. Nangongzhi's eyes glanced at the scene on the street from time to time. Just when Nangongzhi glanced at the street casually, he seemed to have found something interesting. The matter of waiting for Jiraiya was directly thrown to the back of his mind by Nangongzhi. He put enough change to pay for the snacks and tea on the table and quietly hid his figure. Chapter 305. Although Nangongzhi wasn't that attached to the Woodleaf, since he promised Watergate to help the Woodleaf, Nangongzhi naturally took it to heart. But at such a moment, Nangongzhi didn't continue to stay at the agreed place to wait for Jiraiya's arrival. Such behavior is indeed not in line with Nangongzhi's usual behavior, but Nangongzhi still did it. Why? Naturally, it's because Nangongzhi saw something more important than helping Watergate. In fact, there are only a few things in the Woodleaf that can arouse Nangongzhi's interest. And now, Nangongzhi is most concerned about the goal of taking down Danzo. The person Nangongzhi saw wasn't Danzo, but another person that Nangongzhi didn't pay much attention to. This person was Yakushi Kabuto, who showed his face during the Chunin exam. After several deductions, Nangongzhi felt that Yakushi Kabuto must have a certain degree of connection with Danzo. When Nangongzhi saw Yakushi Kabuto in the restaurant, he felt that if he followed Yakushi Kabuto, he would be able to find something valuable. And it turns out that Nangong's intuition has a certain value. In a relatively hidden corner of the wood leaf, Yakushi Kabuto finally stopped his speed that was obviously beyond the level of a genin and even a chunin, and met with someone. The person opposite him was wearing a mask and umbu outfit, but Nangongja could still judge from the habits of the masked person opposite him that this person was a root ninja. Yakushi Kabuto naturally didn't notice that Nangongja was following behind him. After looking around vigilantly, he said to the root ninja in front of him, although there was a slight change in the plan, the overall plan is still going smoothly. We can proceed to the next stage of the plan. Did you bring the item? The root ninja was the same as all the other members of Root. He was a bit taciturn and didn't talk much. Instead, he took out a bulging bag from his back. Obviously, there were a lot of things inside. Yakushi Kabuto seemed to want to confirm the item inside. After opening a corner of the package, he nodded and said to the root ninja, "No problem. Go back and report to Lord Danzo." The root ninja also nodded and disappeared. Yakushi Kabuto also opened the bag in his hand, revealing an umbu-style uniform and a white cloak. After putting on the clothes and putting on a mask on his face, Medicine Master Pocket soared into the air and ran in a certain direction. Nangongja looked at the direction Yakushi Kabuto left and found the extremely conspicuous exam venue for the third exam of the Chunin exam. It seems that their plan started from the inside. This information is extremely important, but Nangongja didn't run to the venue to pass the information to Watergate. To put it bluntly, the relationship between Nangongja and Minato was a cooperation between two people who had a certain amount of common interests. Nangongja didn't think that he would be able to do such a thing. Moreover, there are 2 Hokage and 1 Jonin in the Chunin exam venue. Even if something goes wrong, it will naturally be solved quickly. Nangongja figured out the key points, so he naturally didn't have any other ideas. Instead, he went to the place where he originally agreed to meet with Jiraiya. Jiraiya has already arrived at the place at this moment. It seems that he was waiting for Nangongja's arrival. Lord Jiraiya, Nangongja came to Jiraiya's side and greeted Jiraiya. "Nangong Jounin. You're finally here. I've been scouting around Konoha's village and found that they seem to be deploying a huge summoning formation. In order to avoid being exposed, I didn't show up, but through observation, I recognized that the summoning formation seemed to have a certain connection with Orochimaru's contract with the Earth Dragon Cave. But if Orochimaru was outside the village, there was no need to deploy a summoning formation, so I thought that Orochimaru should have secretly sneaked into Konoha. But now I can't accurately determine Orochimaru's position, and I don't know what to do. According to Orochimaru's character and strength, if he really causes trouble in Woodleaf Village, it will definitely cause great losses. Do you have any valuable information?" Since Jiraiya has already asked him, Nangongja naturally didn't hide anything. He told Jiraiya some of the information he got from tracking Yakushi Kabuto and his own inferences. After Jiraiya heard it, he didn't frown. He seemed to be thinking about whether he should go to the Chunin exam venue or not. But after a while, he shook his head and decided not to go to the Chunin exam venue. After all, the Chunin exam venue can be said to be the most powerful force in Woodleaf Village. Even if Orochimaru goes all out, there is no way to break through the joint attack of Yuan Fei and Watergate in a short time. And the Chunin exam venue also determines that Orochimaru can't bring too much power into it. On the contrary, a large number of ninjas have gathered outside the village. It is difficult to effectively block them with the strength of Woodleaf Village. And his strength can be maximized here. He will trouble his master and disciple to worry about Orochimaru. We will stay here and effectively resist the joint attack of Sand and Sound ninjas, so that Woodleaf Village can have a chance to gather strength. It is too late to inform Watergate. Everything depends on Watergate's performance and the reaction speed of other Woodleaf ninjas. According to the information obtained by Jiraiya's investigation, the attack will start in a quarter of an hour. There is no time to gather the scattered ninjas of Woodleaf Village. Since Yakushi Kabuto and Danzo have a connection, Root naturally has no possibility to participate in the battle. Everything can only rely on himself. From the information he received before, he already knew that Sand Ninja brought his man column force. Once they release Ichibi Shikaku's body regardless of the consequences, only Jiraiya and a few people of Woodleaf Village can resist. And the summoning circle outside the village will definitely release a large summoning beast suitable for attack. Whether it is himself or Nangongja, the pressure is great. What they need to do now is to adjust their state as much as possible to face the difficult battle that may follow. Chapter 306. In the examination room of the third exam of the Chunin exam, Yondaime Hokage, 3 generations Hokage, and Yondaime Kazekage from Sand Ninja watched the fierce battle between Sasuke and Gaara. During the time when Nangongja tracked Kabuto Yakushi and met Jiraiya, the battle between Temari and Shikamaru Nara ended with Shikamaru Nara's defeat, and the battle between Shino and Toshi ended with Shino's victory. Just when Hayate Gecko announced that Sasuke had voluntarily given up the countdown to the exam, Sasuke and Kakashi stood in the Chunin exam's examination room amidst the falling leaves and slight wind. Seeing that Sasuke arrived at the examination room in time, Hayate Gecko also officially announced the start of the last battle of the first round of the third exam. Sasuke's previous strength was naturally slightly inferior to Gaara, but during this time, Kakashi did his best to make Sasuke proficient in using his Kekkei Genkai, 2 Tomo Sharingan, and taught Sasuke his unique skill, Raitun Chidori, which contained the nature of Raitun Chakra. Therefore, in the battle with Gaara, Sasuke relied on Nangongja's Taijutsu, Kakashi's ninjutsu, and the application of Sharingan to fight with Gaara. He even had a tendency to suppress Gaara in some subtle aspects. In the third exam's qualifier, when Lee and Gaara fought, one of Gaara's weaknesses was exposed. That is, although the sand controlled by Gaara has the ability to defend its master, it has a limit in reaction speed. Sasuke stimulated his body with Raitun Chakra, making his speed leap. At the same time, he used Sharingan to constantly detect Gaara's flaws, making Gaara a little tired to deal with it for a while. When Sasuke once again noticed a small flaw in Gaara, he decisively increased the amount of his Raitun Chakra for his body, which suddenly increased his speed. At this time, Sasuke punched Gaara in the face before the sand controlled by Gaara could react. The huge force sent Gaara flying a distance away and falling to the ground. There was a trace of blood at the corner of Gaara's mouth, and the armor made of sand on his face that protected his whole body also had spiderweb-like cracks. Gaara's personality was very extreme and violent. When he found out that he was injured, his eyes, which had a little bit of clarity, were now completely replaced by madness. Gaara's face, which had a little bit of facial paralysis, gradually became ferocious at this moment. With a strange smile, he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Ah. Originally, I wasn't interested in killing you. After all, if I killed my own kind, would be able to prove my worth. But I didn't expect that you, who I didn't care about, would actually injure me. You've really exceeded my expectations. Someone like you is worthy of being killed by me. Sasuke listened to Gaara's words, and he was slightly unhappy. This crazy Gaara dared to underestimate him so much, and even spoke in a tone that made him think that he was as easy to deal with as a dish. Although Sasuke didn't know who Gaara's same kind was, it didn't affect Sasuke's disgust for Gaara. Don't talk big. I'm at a disadvantage now. I don't know who was the one who was beaten by me just now. You still have the nerve to look down on me like this? Sasuke said, but the movements of his hands didn't stop. The pair of Magatama in his eyes rotated at high speed, carefully watching Gaara's every move, trying to attack again. But in such an irrational state, Gaara's flaws at this moment were more difficult to detect than before, and a chakra aura slowly began to appear on Gaara's body, which was obviously different from the chakra he showed before. This kind of chakra was very violent, and just a trace of its aura made Sasuke aware of the danger, and he became more vigilant of Gaara. Ninjutsu, Sand Shuriken. Gaara's mind moved, and a cloud of sand floated from the ground to Gaara's side. Under the influence of Gaara's chakra, it slowly changed into the shape of a shuriken. Gaara waved one hand forward, and the sand shuriken seemed to have received an order and rushed towards Sasuke. The Uchiha clan itself was an expert in using hidden weapons like shuriken and kunai. Since childhood, Sasuke had undergone complete training on shuriken and kunai. Being able to use shuriken and kunai to carry out precise and clever attacks naturally meant that he had the means to fight against the shuriken and kunai that were shot towards him. With the help of his twin Tomo Sharingan, the attack trajectory of the sand shuriken that was shot towards him was naturally visible. Sasuke relied on his body technique and speed to dodge the sand shuriken's attack beautifully. Even in the process of dodging, he launched several shuriken to counterattack Gaara. Gaara naturally relied on his own power to control the sand to block the shuriken that was shot towards him. I thought you would become stronger because of this strange chakra, but I didn't expect you to still be like this. Your boasting is impossible. Sasuke just wanted to suppress Gaara's confidence with his words, but as he spoke, Gaara's originally distorted face showed a scheming smile. Such a smile naturally couldn't escape Sasuke's Sharingan. Under the inexplicable throbbing in his heart, Sasuke jumped towards the sky and looked at the position where he was standing just now. A large whirlpool composed of sand had appeared on the ground. The sand in the whirlpool seemed to come alive, and the sand formed a tentacle-like thing quickly attacked Sasuke. Sasuke's hand quickly formed a seal, and a ninjutsu was completed in an instant. He clenched his hand into a fist and placed it in front of his mouth. A large fireball bombarded the sand tentacles that were reaching towards him. Katan, Great Fireball Jutsu. There was naturally no way to defeat the sand tentacles that were attacking him by relying on flames alone, but because Sasuke was condescending in mid-air, the Great Fireball itself carried a huge force. Such a force naturally dispersed the sand tentacles directly. Sasuke relied on the subtle reaction force of releasing the Great Fireball to deflect his direction in the air and landed lightly on the ground. But his eyes were staring at Gaara, and the fear in them couldn't be concealed at all. Chapter 307. Ah, you actually dodged it? Looking at Sasuke, Gaara's face showed excitement. Obviously, he was very interested in Sasuke dodging his attack. That's right. That's right, only in this way can I feel that you have the value of being my hunting target. Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke, let me kill you, let me realize my value. Gaara's face was particularly ferocious because of that inexplicable excitement. His naked interest in Sasuke made Sasuke's heart feel cold. Originally, he was going to use this trick in the following battle, but now the threat of Gaara was too great. Sasuke felt that he couldn't hold back at all. This trick prepared for the following battle can only be used here in advance. Although Sasuke had some regrets in his heart, there was still a faint excitement surging in Sasuke's heart. The trick that he worked so hard to practice for so long can show its brilliance here. As a ninja, there's nothing more exciting than meeting the best opponent and using your strongest power, isn't it? Sasuke put his bandaged hand in front of him. Cho, Mao, and Shin, the three seals were quickly completed by Sasuke. He turned his hand, which was trembling slightly because of the pain, into a claw-like shape and placed it on his waist. The other hand held the wrist of this hand. Chakra in his body was constantly rushing towards his claw-like hand, and the lightning attribute chakra was constantly condensing. Quantitative change leads to qualitative change. This is the most obvious and absolutely correct truth in this world. A large number of chakra surged in Sasuke's hand, and the originally blue chakra has quietly turned into a dazzling white. Squeak! 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 The sound of thunder and lightning was so noisy, but it had a different kind of rhythm, which gave the sound of thunder and lightning a different kind of beauty. Such a sound, if you really want to find an analogy, probably can only be the chirping of birds, right? At first, it was just a bird chirping desperately, and then it seemed that other birds noticed the chirping of their companions and joined the chirping team. 1. 2. Dozens. Hundreds. Finally, it reached the wonderful sound of thousands of birds chirping together. Lightning evasion, 1,000 birds. It seems that Sasuke's body and spirit were under great pressure from using ninjutsu. Sasuke's voice was slightly low and trembling. However, it was exceptionally imposing, as if the Grim Reaper was announcing his target's name. It was both low and majestic. The Sharingan in Sasuke's eyes rotated quickly. The extraordinary speed made the afterimages left by the two Sharingan almost connected into a line. It was as if there was a black circle in the pair of red eyes. Retreating his right foot slightly, Raiton chakra constantly stimulated his body, and the muscles of his calves and thighs bulged slightly because of the stimulation and Sasuke's active force. Ha! Sasuke roared in his mouth, and his whole body attacked Gaara like an arrow from the bow, leaving some blurry afterimages behind Sasuke because of the excessive speed. Casting 1,000 birds requires a certain acceleration, and Sasuke jumped to avoid Gaara's move because of Gaara's attack just now. For this reason, there was also a certain distance between Gaara and Sasuke, and this distance was enough to reach the sprint distance needed by 1,000 birds. Sasuke's eyes stared closely at Gaara's body to find Gaara's evasion direction in time and adjust his attack direction. However, even in the face of such a huge momentum, Gaara didn't dodge at all. Instead, he looked at Sasuke's body and said excitedly, "That's it, that's it. Only such a person is worth killing. I'm looking forward to seeing if your noisy attack can beat my strongest shield." Just when the distance between Sasuke and Gaara was less than 3 meters, the strange chakra on Gaara's body began to condense a lot. The sand, which didn't react so quickly, surged quickly at this moment. Even the huge sand gourd behind Gaara exploded in an instant, and quickly surged in front of Gaara. For a moment, a huge round tanuki appeared in front of Sasuke. The tanuki had a bag of sand flowing constantly on its head, and there were brownish-red patterns on its body. Although it looked a bit funny, it gave people a strong sense of oppression. Sasuke's speed had been raised to the extreme, and even Sasuke himself couldn't change direction in time. So, in front of everyone, Sasuke took his Chidori and rushed straight to Shikaku's shield, which was called the strongest shield by Gaara. Ah! Break for me! Since he couldn't avoid it, Sasuke simply launched an attack directly on Shikaku's shield. Sasuke believed that he had gone through a lot of hardships and even put at least a quarter of his chakra into his body, and chakra would never be blocked by such a funny-looking tanuki doll. Puchi, a slightly dull sound rang out. Sasuke didn't directly penetrate the tanuki doll in front of him as he thought. Instead, he let the tanuki doll firmly entangle his hand like quicksand. The sand inside the tanuki doll was also constantly rotating, offsetting Sasuke's impact and causing some damage to Sasuke. Gaara's smile became bigger, and a trace of killing intent and excitement flashed in his eyes. Gaara's clenched fist slowly loosened, and Shikaku's shield also slowly began to dissolve, wrapping around Sasuke's body like maggots. The sand slowly began to wrap around Sasuke's entire body. Gaara quietly waited for the sand to completely wrap around Sasuke, and then he could use the sand-binding coffin to crush Sasuke to death. Gaara seemed to have seen Sasuke's blood seeping out of the sand, and his miserable screams echoed around. "It's really exciting, isn't it? I can finally realize my value." Great! Great! Fourth Kazekage in the stands looked at the scene in the field and frowned slightly. Chapter 308. Just as Kazekage in the stands frowned slightly as he watched his son, Gaara, kill Sasuke, a huge firework exploded in the air outside Konoha's territory. Although there was no way to see the color of the firework clearly during the day, the loud sound could be heard clearly by the entire wood leaf. At the same time, in the audience of the third exam of the Chunin exam, an umbu person quickly printed, and pieces of feathers slowly fell in the air. Many ninjas and ordinary people from all over the world fell directly into a coma. Nirvana technique. Among the wood leaf ninjas present, there were many ninjas who were proficient in genjutsu. After discovering this technique, they quickly reacted. But to be honest, there was no particularly effective way to resist this jutsu. It was a large-scale hypnosis technique. As long as a person's spiritual power passed and knew a certain method to disrupt the genjutsu, they could break it. However, there was no ninjutsu that could be used against them. It could only be used one by one, which was undoubtedly a waste of ninjas' resources. The one who cast this genjutsu was naturally Kabuto, who was tracked by Nangongja before. After casting this genjutsu, Kabuto also left the field. The sand ninjas also entered the field. Temari and Kankuro abruptly stopped Gaara and took him to the wood leaf, where the sand and Otogekure allied forces were. On the high platform, the two Hokage and the fourth Kazekage stood up, and the atmosphere was very serious. Raza, what do you mean by this? Is the sand going to officially start a war with Woodleaf? Looking at the fourth Kazekage standing opposite him, Yuan Fei was also very angry. After all, in the previous Third Shinobi World War, sand was almost pressed to the ground and suffered great losses. According to the prediction of relevant personnel, sand was simply too conservative in the next 5 years. In addition, the daimyo of the Land of Wind wasn't so assured of sand, so the situation of sand was actually very dangerous. But even under such circumstances, Raza, the fourth Kazekage, still launched an attack on Konoha? What? Did he think that Woodleaf was so weak that he could easily win the war and revive Tsunegekure? 3 generations Hokage-sama. Yuan Fei-sama. Don't tell me that Watergate kid didn't inform you of the information he should have told you. You should know very well who I am, right? Since that's the case, why are you being so secretive? In the second exam, Orochimaru knew that his identity had been exposed, but in the third exam, he was wearing the name of the fourth Kazekage, so Woodleaf didn't dare to directly lift his Kazekage hat and hit the sand ninja's face. Previously, Orochimaru had been waiting for the people outside the village to finish their preparations, which was why he was able to endure for so long. Now that everything has been settled, Orochimaru naturally took off the Kazekage hat on his head, revealing his somewhat evil face and long black hair. Orochimaru? Yuan Fei was also a little surprised. Obviously, he didn't expect that his disciple would directly dress up as the fourth Kazekage, but then his thoughts changed, and he hurriedly asked Orochimaru, "Where is the real Raza? Did you already?" Huh. Orochimaru smiled, but his smile was particularly cold, and then said, "Yuan Fei, sensei, when have you seen me show mercy to the enemy? Raza, this guy, is now lying in the desert of the Land of Wind, being gnawed by vultures, enjoying a proper, sky burial, right?" Yuan Fei naturally knew how he felt about my disciple. It was because he discovered that Orochimaru had conducted extremely inhumane human experiments in Woodleaf that Yuan Fei expelled Orochimaru from Woodleaf. He didn't expect that his disciple would become worse after leaving Woodleaf, and now he actually made such a crazy move to directly kill the Kazekage. When Yuan Fei understood that Raza was dead, Yuan Fei also almost understood why the Sand would not take into account their own situation and join forces with the Sound to attack Woodleaf. 3 generations, Sama. My sensei and Nangong have been waiting outside for a long time. No matter what method Orochimaru wants to use to attack Woodleaf, I believe that under the obstruction of the two of them and many Chunin and Jonin, there won't be any big waves. What we have to do now is to capture Orochimaru as soon as possible. As long as we can capture Orochimaru, all the problems will be solved. Since Orochimaru has revealed his identity, there is no point in hiding some of the arrangements made by Watergate, so Watergate also told 3 generations about his arrangements. Capture me? Then let's do it. Hearing Watergate's words, Orochimaru looked at the 4th Hokage, who is 1 generation younger than him, and said so. With a jump, Orochimaru has already jumped to the roof of the viewing platform. The huge roof is enough to become the battlefield of these 3 Kage-level powerhouses. After exchanging a look with the 3 generations, Watergate and 3 generations also followed Orochimaru to the roof. The 3 of them confronted each other, looking for each other's flaws. Just as the 3 of them reached the roof, 4 figures leaped out from the crowd and arrived at the 4 corners of the roof. Each of them squatted on the ground and quickly formed a seal. A ninjutsu similar to a barrier was cast by the 4 of them, and a purple barrier covered the roof part, so that others can't interfere with the battle of the 3 Kage-level powerhouses. For Violet Flame Formation. As the ninjutsu professor, 3 generations recognized the origin of this barrier in an instant. Then he asked Orochimaru, "I know that you have always planned before you act. Since you dare to fight me in Watergate alone, you must have your own trump card, so you don't have to be so secretive. Let me see how much you have grown after leaving Woodleaf." Yuan Fei was actually deliberately provoking Orochimaru, so that Orochimaru would reveal his trump card against himself and Watergate. Yuan Fei is really too tired to understand Orochimaru. He is proud and extreme, so his provocation will definitely work. Only by understanding what Orochimaru's trump card is, can he deal with Orochimaru. Orochimaru naturally knew that his sensei was deliberately provoking him, but Orochimaru didn't care, because his trump card itself is not a secret. There is nothing wrong with using it now. Chapter 309. Since Teacher Yuan Fei is so interested in my background, I naturally cannot disappoint teacher, right? Orochimaru said in his cold and hoarse voice to the 3 generations Hokage. Orochimaru also quickly made hand seals, and finally put his palms together in front of his chest. Sandaime looked at Orochimaru's hand seals and naturally recognized what kind of ninjutsu Orochimaru was using. Then his eyes widened as he looked at Orochimaru angrily and said, You actually secretly practice this ninjutsu? How can you blaspheme the souls of the dead like this? Ha ha ha. Orochimaru completely ignored Yuan Fei's reaction. Instead, he chuckled a few times and coldly spat out the name of this ninjutsu, Edo Tensei. Let the Hokage of Woodleaf gather here. The tiles on the roof seemed to have turned into a swamp at this moment, and in the ripples, 2 coffins slowly rose. One of the 2 coffins had the word 1 and the other one had the word 2 written on it. Combined with what Orochimaru said just now, the identity of these 2 people was already obvious. They are the founder of Woodleaf, the first Hokage Senju Takuma and Hashirama's younger brother, the second Hokage of Woodleaf, Senju Takuma. Crack! With a crisp sound, the lids of the 2 coffins were slowly opened, revealing the faces of the 2 Hokage of Woodleaf. Unlike normal people, the faces of the people summoned by the Edo Tensei were pale, and there were some obvious cracks. The white part of their eyes had turned black, making people feel very uncomfortable. After a while, Senju Takuma and Tobirama finally opened their eyes and looked around. Senju Takuma didn't say anything, but Tobirama said, "This seems to be Woodleaf, and our appearance." Tobirama raised his hand and looked at it. Then he seemed to understand something and said, "We really reap what we sow." Back then, in order to increase Woodleaf's strength, I started researching Edo Tensei. But at that time, Big Brother stopped me and sealed up all the incomplete information. Who would have thought that someone would be able to complete the technique I left behind? Hearing his brother's words, Senju Takuma also said to Tobirama, "I told you to completely destroy these things, but you didn't listen. Now look at us, we're already dead, but we're still being dragged out." Hashirama himself had a lively temperament. He was obviously summoned by the Edo Tensei, but he didn't seem to care about his situation at all. Instead, he blamed his younger brother. Obviously, Tobirama has long been accustomed to his elder brother, so he directly chose to ignore his brother's blame. Instead, he looked at Yuan Fei standing opposite him and said with emotion, "Are you Yuan Fei boy? It's been so many years, have you become an old man?" Looking at Yuan Fei, who was obviously much older than himself and his elder brother, Tobirama also felt a lot of emotions for a while. Hearing his brother's words, Hashirama was also interested. He happily went to Tobirama's side and saw the old Sarutobi. Oh, Oh. Yuan Fei boy, what's wrong with you? Is it because you've been too indulgent after getting married? You've become so old. Hearing Hashirama's words, everyone on the roof was shocked. Even the gloomy Orochimaru's eyes and mouth twitched a little at this moment. Obviously, he had a hard time enduring it. This is, the first Hokage? Looking at the familiar face engraved on the shadow rock of wood leaf, combined with the words of the 3 generations, Watergate naturally understood that the long-haired man opposite him is the first Hokage of wood leaf, Senju Takuma, but why is Watergate's heart so unwilling to admit it? Orochimaru. Don't you think that your means are a bit too dirty? These two are your seniors, your grandmasters. You disturbed their rest just for your own selfish desires, causing their souls to be unable to rest in peace. How can you bear to do this? The 3 generations ignored Watergate's question. Instead, they began to reprimand their disciples. His words were full of righteousness and were very reasonable. But Hashirama, who was standing next to Tobirama, muttered in his mouth, "Little Yuan Fei is really not cute anymore. Now he looks like a pedantic old man. Hey, he's already an old man, okay? Although what you said is not wrong, but what's with that subtle sense of inconsistency? There are a total of 5 Kage-level powerhouses present, and 4 of them intentionally or unintentionally ignored Hashirama. As for the remaining one, isn't it Hashirama? Even if he wants to ignore it, it's his own words, how can he ignore it? And Orochimaru seems to be tired of the situation of these people talking about their daily lives. He took out 2 kunai from his arms and put them into the heads of the 2 former Hokages. Everyone. I didn't bring you here to talk about daily life and see the changes of wood leaf. Since you're already here, it's better to listen to my orders. When Orochimaru took out 2 kunai, the several Hokages knew that a battle was inevitable, so they could only adjust their state. Watergate took off his Haori, and 3 generations also took off their white robes, revealing their black clothes. Little Yuan Fei, be careful. Hashirama suddenly shouted at 3 generations. At the same time, his hands were constantly forming hand seals, and a ninjutsu was completed in an instant. Wood release, world of trees descending. Trees began to take root and grow rapidly on the roof. The originally bare roof had turned into a sea of trees at this moment. But Hashirama didn't stop there. Instead, he continued to form hand seals to cast ninjutsu, wood release, 10,000 things. The roof that was originally covered with trees suddenly had many thick roots emerging from the ground. These roots quickly attacked Watergate and 3 generations. Little Yuan Fei and the blonde boy next to him, don't be touched by these roots, otherwise, it will cause a large loss of chakra. With Hashirama's warning, Watergate directly shot his special kunai at the blind spot of the roots, and with a flying thunder god jutsu, he dodged the roots that were coming towards him. At the same time, the Sandaime summoned his summon beast, the ape devil. In an instant, the ape devil transformed into a huge stick and waved it vigorously, breaking the roots that were attacking him one by one. Chapter 310. Seeing that Senju Takuma's attack didn't work, Tobirama directly stepped forward and quickly formed hand seals, forming a ninjutsu in an instant. Tobirama himself was a grand master of water release. Even in a place without water, he can fully display water release ninjutsu, and now, Tobirama was using his most representative ninjutsu, water release, hard whirlpool water blade. In the palm of Tobirama's hand, a whirlpool of water has appeared, and as the chakra injected by Tobirama continued to increase, the whirlpool formed in the palm of Tobirama's hand also became bigger and bigger. Originally, the 3 generations have been using their taijutsu to block Senju Takuma's jutsu, but when the whirlpool in the palm of Tobirama's hand reached the size of a basketball, Yuan Fei discovered what kind of ninjutsu Tobirama was using. Watergate. Quickly stop the ninjutsu that Nidaime is using. We must not let this ninjutsu accumulate, otherwise, its lethality will be too great. When Watergate heard Yuan Fei's shout, he also looked at Tobirama, who seemed to be silent since the beginning of the battle. The huge whirlpool in the palm of Tobarama's hand was naturally seen by Watergate, especially the momentum coming from the whirlpool was even more difficult to ignore. Waving his left hand, a flying thunder god kunai flew toward Senju Tobarama. It's actually my flying thunder god jutsu? It seems that I have a successor, much better than my stupid brother. Tobarama just used hard whirlpool water blade under the control of the talisman to attack Orochimaru. Naturally, there was no way to warn Orochimaru, but now that he has been discovered, Orochimaru naturally lifted the talisman's restriction on Tobarama, allowing him to speak. Watergate naturally knew whose ninjutsu his flying thunder god jutsu was. Now, facing Tobarama, if the quality of the Edo Tensei's sacrifice was too poor, and he himself was forcibly controlled by Orochimaru against his will, and he didn't have the medium to use the flying thunder god jutsu, the battle between Tobarama and Watergate would be 100 times more exciting than it is now. Blonde boy, since you know how to use the flying thunder god jutsu, then you have the opportunity to break my hard whirlpool water blade. Insert the kunai with the space mark directly into the center of the hard whirlpool water blade, and then use the space transfer to directly separate the water formed by my chakra, so that the hard whirlpool water blade can be broken without attacking. Watergate heard Tobarama's instructions, so naturally, he directly teleported the hard whirlpool water blade to a place where Tobarama couldn't sense it, and then he fought with Tobarama with his flying thunder god jutsu. From time to time, Tobarama used his ninjutsu to attack Watergate, and Watergate used his Rasengan to counterattack from time to time. Unlike other ninjutsu, Mokuton is almost impossible to target, only Katon can have a little effect, so Yuan Fei also decisively used this B-class ninjutsu to block the roots that attacked him because he threw away the stick. A huge fire dragon was spat out from his mouth. Because of the injection of a lot of chakra, the attack power and size of this B-class ninjutsu have been significantly improved at this moment. The fire dragon wandered wantonly in a forest. Because of Senju Takuma's actions, the trees formed by Mokuton don't have the characteristics of fire resistance, directly covering the entire roof with flames. Looking at Senju Takuma, Orochimaru's eyes were very cold, and his hands were flying, directly activating the talisman he implanted in the heads of Senju Takuma and Senju Takuma, completely controlling the actions of the two people. Even if he sacrificed some of his strength, it was much better than slacking like now, right? Chapter 311. Although forcibly controlling the thoughts of the person summoned by the Edo Tensei will lead to a decrease in strength and flexibility, it is always better than being unable to help at all and causing trouble like now. Senju Takuma and Tobarama's eyes slowly became empty, without the lively spirit they had just now. Watergate and Yuan Fei also quickly discovered the changes of the two seniors, and the two also gathered together again, seemingly hoping to find a way to help the two former Hokages. Originally, only some research materials of the Edo Tensei have been passed down. Orochimaru probably just perfected this ninjutsu and applied it. It can be seen from Orochimaru's clumsiness when he controlled the two former Hokages. But it is precisely because of this that it is even more difficult for us to find a way to free the two former Hokages. In the wood leaf, only spirit transformation jutsu and Shiki Fujin are related to the existence of souls. Spirit transformation jutsu is Kato's secret technique. Although we have the relevant information, there is no way to find someone who can practice this secret technique. Now we can only use Shiki Fujin. Looking at Watergate, Yuan Fei said with a firm face. Orochimaru was his disciple, but he was also his disciple. At this moment, he was blaspheming the two former Hokages of Konoha, and it was also his disciple who pushed Konoha into such a dangerous situation. All of this was his responsibility for letting Orochimaru go. In this case, he should be the one to end everything. Minato knew very well how stubborn this old man named Sarutobi was. Ninja was a profession that was born for fighting. After retiring behind the scenes for 3 generations, many big and small problems have gradually appeared in his body. If things continue to develop according to this situation, Yuan Fei can only live for a few years, and he has to struggle on his sickbed to win these few years. Although he is old, Yuan Fei's pride has never subsided, but it has become more and more firm. Now, Yuan Fei's words were tantamount to choosing a way for himself to die. The corpse ghost seal was indeed a very powerful sealing technique. No matter if it was a huge chakra or a powerful soul, it could be sealed. However, the price to pay was also very expensive, and that was his own life. Watergate looked at Yuan Fei and felt very uncomfortable in his heart, but this was Yuan Fei's decision. As a proud and powerful ninja, Yuan Fei would not allow his death to be worthless. At this time, Yuan Fei could give up his life in order to inspire the Woodleaf Ninjas, to unite the Woodleaf Ninjas, and to protect the freedom of his two masters. Please. Watergate. The eyes of the three generations were a little cloudy, and there were obvious traces of age on his face. Yuan Fei was truly old. But the begging of the three generations touched Watergate's mood so much that he could only nod bitterly and agree to Yuan Fei's request. Ninjutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Ninjutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Yuan Fei and Watergate's voices sounded at the same time, and the two of them separated into two shadow clones, rushing toward Senju Takuma, Tobarama, and Orochimaru, Seal Jutsu, Golden Seal Jutsu, False. Watergate's voice sounded, and the three Watergate's clones quickly made hand seals, and chains rose from Watergate's body and his clones. The Golden Seal Jutsu itself is a jutsu unique to the Uzumaki clan. As it is not compatible with the Uzumaki clan's chakra, Watergate can't use the original Golden Seal Jutsu, but with the help of Shinakushina, Watergate used his own chakra to develop a jutsu very similar to the Golden Seal Jutsu. Although it is not as powerful as the Golden Seal Jutsu inherited by the Uzumaki clan, it is also a good way to trap the enemy. Chains with a little metallic luster and exuding light flew from the back of Watergate's body and clones, rushing directly towards Senju Takuma, the Tobarama brothers, and Orochimaru. The extremely fast speed made Senju Takuma and the Tobarama brothers, who have lost their flexibility, directly bound by the chains. Orochimaru could have avoided it, but Yuan Fei's clones and his body, a total of 3 clones, directly blocked Orochimaru's room to escape. Watergate's Golden Seal Jutsu, False, also directly imprisoned Orochimaru. Old man. What are you doing? Orochimaru suddenly had an ominous premonition in his heart. The originally gloomy atmosphere has now been directly dispelled by the throbbing of his heart because of the approaching death. Orochimaru. In the beginning, because of my mistake, I let you leave Konoha. Over the years, I had hoped that you would repent, but you have become even worse. Now, you have led Konoha into such a situation and proposed this plan called Konoha's Collapse. As your sensei, I am duty-bound to help you. Whether it is the 2 former Hokages or you, let me deal with them one by one. After that, Yuan Fei's 2 clones arrived in front of Senju Takuma and Tobarama. The 3 clones quickly printed at the same time, and a total of 9 seals were quickly completed. Behind the 3 clones of Yuan Fei, the Shinigami's shadow, which can only be seen by the caster and the target, has become so clear at this moment. The Shinigami stretched out his pale hand and directly passed through Yuan Fei's abdomen. The pale hand also directly grabbed Senju Takuma and Tobarama's imprisoned souls in the Edo Tensei, pulling his hand back, and the Edo Tensei's body also collapsed. Yuan Fei's face turned pale as well. It was obvious that he was under a lot of pressure. After removing his 2 clones, he let the chakra in his body recover a little, and once again conveyed his will to the Shinigami behind him. The Shinigami's hand passed through the abdomen of Yuan Fei's body and slowly grabbed Orochimaru's soul. Yuan Fei conveyed the command to the Shinigami to directly extract Orochimaru's soul, but the Shinigami's originally expressionless face showed a very human-like protest. Using his own soul in exchange for the soul of 2 dead people and 1 living person? The Shinigami didn't seem to agree to such a deal. Seeing that Orochimaru's soul seemed to be constantly struggling in the hands of the Shinigami, Yuan Fei knew that he had to make a decision, so he directly conveyed his will to the Shinigami. Although somewhat reluctant, the Shinigami took the short knife in his mouth and cut Orochimaru's soul, directly cutting off the part of Orochimaru's hands. Chapter 312. Pain. Orochimaru didn't have any other feelings, but this kind of pain was etched in his heart. When the Shinigami cut off the soul in Orochimaru's arm, the pain directly made Orochimaru, who had become numb because of several reincarnations, extremely sensitive, and the pain directly attacked Orochimaru's mind. Ah! 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 Orochimaru shouted loudly at the sky, but soon stopped abruptly. Apparently, he had been directly stimulated by the intense pain and lost consciousness. Watergate walked towards Orochimaru, holding a kunai in his hand. Watergate has a deep fear of Orochimaru, because Watergate's master Jiraiya has a very close relationship with Orochimaru, so Watergate thinks that he knows Orochimaru better. This person is simply a madman. As long as it is something he believes in, all the rules of the world are useless in front of him. Such a person is a bit too dangerous. Watergate felt that he can't let Orochimaru leave Woodleaf like this. But just when Watergate was about to reach Orochimaru, the three generations, who were still holding Orochimaru's shoulder, trembled and reached out their hands to stop Watergate. Three generations was dying, so their voice was very weak and trembling, but they still mustered up the strength to say to Watergate, "Watergate. Now I'm not talking to you as the Hokage of three generations, your master, but as an old man named Yuan Fei. I have three disciples in my life. Orochimaru is smart, Jiraiya is sincere, and Tsunade is kind. I thought that my disciples would be the mainstay of Konoha's future, but it seems that fate has made a fool of us. Orochimaru, Tsunade, and Jiraiya left Konoha one after another, leaving only me, an old man, to support Konoha with you over the years. Now that I'm about to leave this world, the burden that was originally on me is also removed from my body little by little. Just now, I have sealed the soul of Orochimaru's arm with Shiki Fujin Jutsu. From now on, he can no longer use ninjutsu. Although Orochimaru has done a lot of unforgivable things, I believe that this is a punishment worse than death for him. This child, like my other two disciples, grew up under my watch. It's not an exaggeration to say that they are my children, so I'm here to discuss with you as a master and a father. Since Orochimaru has already accepted his punishment, I don't know if Hokage-sama can spare the life of this unfilial disciple who betrayed the Woodleaf. Three generations said. His slightly closed eyes were now filled with tears. It could be said that the third generation treated his three disciples the same way he treated his own children. Sandem-sama was also very angry with Orochimaru's behavior and wanted to teach him a good lesson, but at the moment of his death, the rationality in his heart was quietly suppressed by his emotions. In the mind of three generations, all the bits and pieces between himself and his disciples, the more he recalled, the more three generations didn't want his disciples to die like this. Changing their usual attitude, three generations actually pleaded with Watergate as Orochimaru's master, hoping that Watergate can spare Orochimaru's life. Three generations' actions also made Watergate unable to react for a while. Although three generations usually looked very amiable, Watergate knew that three generations were famous for being tough and stubborn in the Woodleaf. Now that three generations actually said such words to protect Orochimaru's life, Watergate also couldn't react for a while. Three generations, Sama. Looking at three generations' eyes full of tears, Watergate's heart suddenly softened. He only felt that he seemed to know a little bit about the psychological activities of three generations. This old man who protected Woodleaf for a lifetime, in the last moment of his life, Watergate felt that he shouldn't refuse, so he also put away the kunai in his hand and said to three generations, "I understand what you mean. I promise you that this time I will let Orochimaru leave. It can be regarded as giving him a last chance. If he disappears and never appears in the ninja world, then naturally I won't send people to hunt him down. If he still doesn't repent, and even threatens the safety of Woodleaf, at that time I will directly kill him." Hearing Watergate's answer, Three Generations' heart that was originally hanging in the air was also relieved. In any case, at least Orochimaru got a chance to live. It can be regarded as the last gift of his master before he dies, right? Thinking about it, Three Generations felt as if he was immersed in a large dark and cold sea. Whether it was physical activity or breathing at this moment seems to have lost its meaning. He just let his mind completely empty, his body, as if by some kind of inspiration, became lighter and lighter, as if he was about to float. Looking at Three Generations' body gradually losing its temperature, Watergate's mood wasn't so good. The pot is always close to the mouth of the well, and the general will inevitably die in battle. Now that Three Generations as his master has completed his journey in the world and left this world, then how will he leave? Minato shook his head and cleared his mind of these complicated thoughts. He coldly glanced at the several subordinates of Orochimaru who were maintaining the four violet flame formation, and said to them without any emotion, "Since Three Generations and I have promised to spare Orochimaru's life, then naturally we won't go back on our words. You just need to remove the barrier and take Orochimaru away. My conditions will also be conveyed to Orochimaru. If Orochimaru is still as unscrupulous as he is now, and even threatens the safety of Woodleaf will definitely go all out to hunt down Orochimaru." Several of Orochimaru's men heard Watergate's words. They looked at each other and nodded, so they removed the four violet flame formation, lifted the unconscious Orochimaru, and jumped a few times out of Watergate's field of vision. Waving his hand, several Umbu ninjas were called to his side, indicating them to collect the bodies of Three Generations. Watergate also looked at the huge black lion with a golden mane that looked very conspicuous outside the village. The death of Three Generations made Watergate's power reach a historical low, but it is also a good opportunity. The relationship between Three Generations, Danzo, and the elder group is too entangled. If he can completely pull Nangongje into his camp, maybe his power will not decrease but increase. Chapter 313. On the battlefield outside Woodleaf, Nangongje summoned his familiar beast, Ryo the Black Lion, and Jiraiya also summoned Gamabunta from Mount Myaboku. When the battle just started, the Sand and Sound ninjas still sent some teams to test the Woodleaf's defense. After a discussion, Jiraiya and Nangongje decided to block these teams as much as possible, so that the ninja army outside would not dare to act rashly, and buy time for the Woodleaf ninjas to gather. As two Kage-tier ninjas, Nangongje and Jiraiya joined forces to kill all the teams that came in to explore the situation, making the ninja army outside hesitate for nearly 5 minutes before they decided to launch an attack desperately. But for a ninja, these 5 minutes are precious. When the fireworks in the sky shone, whether they were instructed by Watergate or not, all the ninjas who didn't have a special mission had spontaneously gone to Woodleaf's main road to carry out a certain amount of defense work. And more people went to the place where the fireworks were launched, where Nangongje and Jiraiya were waiting for the Woodleaf ninjas to come to support. As a veteran of Woodleaf, Jiraiya's existence also made many ninjas who came to support feel that they have a core. On the other hand, the Sand and Sound ninjas' joint army didn't appear. The so-called Kazekage Raza and the Sound ninjas' leader, Orochimaru, didn't appear. Although they had a detailed plan, they were still mentally inferior, and there were some gaps between the Sand and Sound ninjas. Under the influence of such factors, the Sand and Sound Shinobi coalition forces, which were obviously more numerous than Konoha, actually fell into an anxious battle with Konoha, and the casualty rate was much higher than Konoha's shinobi. In order to protect their homeland, every ninja of Konoha fought with their lives on the line. Just as the scales of victory were slowly tilting towards the Woodleaf, the Sand and Sound ninjas seemed to know that they couldn't hold back. The large summoning array that was discovered by Jiraiya was also activated, and 2 huge pythons with 2 heads appeared directly on the battlefield. Most of the snake-summoned beasts in the ground dragon cave were not good-tempered. Even Orochimaru, the contractor, had to pay a certain price to make the pythons obey him. In order to allow these 2 two-headed serpents to unleash greater destructive power, Orochimaru also made certain modifications to the magic circle, causing the summoned two-headed serpents to directly go berserk. The Sand and Sound ninjas never dreamed that their trump card was a big killing machine that couldn't distinguish between friend and foe, but since they summoned the two-headed snakes, they could only let them wreak havoc on the battlefield. The two-headed snakes caused heavy damage to the Woodleaf ninjas, and Jiraiya couldn't stand it anymore, so he used his summoning beast to summon Gamuda of Mount Mayaboku to stop the two-headed snakes. Although the two strange snakes weren't as strong as Toad Bunta in terms of overall strength, they were still cunning and vicious snakes. Even if they only had their instincts and madness left, they weren't easy to kill. Toad Bunta was temporarily tied down. Nangongja led the Woodleaf ninjas to constantly kill the Sand and Sound ninjas. It was supposed to be a smooth thing. As long as Gamuda could kill the two snakes, and then he led the Woodleaf ninjas to chase after them, even wiping out the Sand and Sound ninjas wasn't an impossible goal. But on the other side of the forest outside Woodleaf, a tall and somewhat bloated khaki tanuki suddenly appeared. Whether it was the aura on the tanuki's body that couldn't be ignored, the black and purple patterns on its body, or the very conspicuous Gaara that had lost consciousness on its forehead, all proved that this tanuki belonged to the sand village of the Land of Wind, Ichibi Shikaku. The sudden appearance of a bijou on the battlefield had a huge impact on everyone. Although Sunagakure has never liked Gaara as the Ichibi's Jinchuriki, the morale of Sunagakure still improved when they saw the ultimate power of their village at such a critical moment. The original feeling of depression was swept away directly. This wasn't a good thing, so Nangongja immediately rushed to the place where Ichibi Shikaku appeared. He wanted to suppress Ichibi Shikaku and let the Woodleaf ninjas suppress all the ninjas attacking Woodleaf ninjas as soon as possible. Jumping and flashing several times in the forest, Nangongja came to the place where Ichibi Shikaku appeared. To Nangongja's surprise, he saw Kankuro, Temari, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura gathered together, looking at Ichibi Shikaku's huge figure with a worried face. Several people seemed to be arguing about something, all of them were red in the face, as if they were going to start a fight if they didn't agree. Nangongja also quickly increased his speed and came to the side of Naruto, looking at Temari and Kankuro with a little vigilance. The two Ichibi Column Force Gaara's blood relatives, he asked the two people very seriously, "Are you the ones who made Ichibi lose control and wreak havoc here?" Temari and Kankuro hadn't seen Nangongja, but the dangerous aura from Nangongja made the two people shudder. They secretly controlled their fans and puppets, ready to attack Nangongja at any time. "Uncle, it's not like that." Gaara lost his mind, and then used a ninjutsu called Doze Jutsu to let this big tanuki run out. Naruto pulled Nangongja's sleeve behind Nangongja and said to Nangongja. Naruto looked at Sasuke and Sakura, and the two children also nodded, confirming Naruto's words. "Sir." Temari summoned the courage to come forward and said to Nangongja, "I'm the daughter of the fourth Kazekage of Sunagakure, Raza. My name is Temari. Previously, we were deceived by Orochimaru, and under the leadership of Orochimaru disguised as a Kazekage, we invaded Woodleaf in violation of the armistice agreement. But this is all because of Orochimaru's disappearance. We are willing to continue to coexist peacefully with Woodleaf. Originally, my brother Kankuro and I wanted to take Gaara to the front battlefield and let Gaara use Doze Jutsu to defeat Woodleaf Ninja. But when we were in the Chunin exam hall, my brother Kankuro, and Sanjonin Maki had already discovered the abnormality of Kazekage, so we took my brother here. But it seems that Doze Jutsu has been transcribed in Gaara's body, and it was directly activated just now. Even Naruto, the three Woodleaf Ninja, and us can't stop Gaara. Sir, whether it's for the victory of this war or for the future of Woodleaf and Sand Village, I beg you to stop Gaara and stop him from killing too many people." Chapter 314. It has to be said that Temari's words were extremely beautiful, directly lowering Sunagakure's position in this war to a very low position. Even people who didn't know the inside story might think that Sunagakure was simply deceived, but in fact, whether this was the case or not, whether it was Nangongja or Temari, both of them knew clearly in their hearts. If Sunagakure wasn't so traditional and conservative, maybe the next Kazekage of Sunagakure wouldn't be impossible to get involved. Compared to her dull and timid younger brother, Temari's quality can be said to be extremely good. I appreciate you, Nangongja said bluntly to Temari, which made Temari unable to respond for a while. Although my impression of Sunagakure is not so good, and there is a lot of hatred between us, I appreciate your attitude. This Shikaku is wantonly destroying here, and I want to stop it. I hope you can make Sunagakure different from what it is now. After that, Nangongja turned and ran towards Shikaku. Make Sunagakure different? Nangongja's words were still echoing in Temari's mind. What kind of identity can make the conservative Sunagakure change? Temple pondered for a moment, but she quickly forced herself not to continue imagining things. To be able to affect Sunagakure, strength alone is not enough, more righteousness is needed, and there is only one person in Sunagakure who has such righteousness, and that is the leader of Sunagakure, Kazekage. Nangongja, does he want me to become the Kazekage of Sunagakure? Temari never thought of such a thing, and Nangongja didn't say that he wanted Temari to become the Kazekage of Sunagakure, but Temari still couldn't help but start to imagine what it would be like to become the Kazekage. Her father is the Kazekage, and Temari was very clear about the majesty and power of the Kazekage, so when this illusion took root in her mind, it grew extremely fast. Even Nangongja, who deliberately induced Temari, did not expect that his casual move would be so effective. As for Temari's reaction, Nangongja didn't care so much. After all, his main focus was his own subordinates, the Blood Cloak Pavilion, and the Woodleaf Village that he had the closest relationship with. The Sand Ninja was a bit too far away, wasn't it? Ichibi Shikaku, in some ancient records, this huge monster was described as such. It grew up in the Nara Desert. At first, it was mistakenly thought to be a monster that was buried and accumulated under the influence of otherworldly magic. It was born from the resentful spirits of the dead who were trapped in the desert and suffocated by the sandstorm. But no one knows how much of these records are true, but Ichibi Shikaku can indeed use his own power to control sand and cast powerful wind-release ninjutsu. Li Yang. It's time to fight. Although Nangongja was confident that he could stop the Ichibi Shikaku, Nangongja still needed to summon Li Yang to fight the Ichibi Shikaku as soon as possible to boost the morale of the Woodleaf ninjas and make the Sand and Sound ninjas give up resistance. As Nangongja's hand moved forward, a huge array appeared in the sky. Li Yang responded to Nangongja's call and slowly revealed her figure from the huge array. Black fur, golden mane, 4 hooves, and the end of the tail were burning with golden flames, showing Li Yang's extraordinary aura. Furthermore, golden lightning was leaping above the array, causing everyone to feel an inexplicable pressure in their hearts. Even the Ichibi Shikaku, after sensing Li Yang's aura, turned his huge body and looked at Li Yang's figure with his eyes that were like copper coins. There was a clear doubt in his eyes. The huge guy in front of him could be said to have the same strength as the Ichibi Shikaku, but in his memory, there was no memory of such a black lion. Was it because he had slept for too long that his memory had faded? Who are you? Shikaku asked Li Yang in his muffled voice. There was a little bit of joy in his tone. Shikaku's nature was more lively and lively. Although he didn't have any respect for human life, and liked to use sand to deprive the lives of fragile individuals, but when he met a strange giant beast that was on the same level as him, he couldn't help but feel close to it. Little Tanuki. You don't know me, but I know you. There is no conflict between you and me, but this little brother of mine has some cooperation with this village called Woodleaf. Although you and I don't know each other, but it would be better to form a good karma. You can push the child you are lodging in, and I don't have to fight with you. What do you think? Li Yang's temper was getting better and better in these years. According to her previous temperament, she might have already fought with the Ichibi Shikaku. But now Li Yang found the trace of her lion clan. In order to let the lion clan continue, Li Yang needed to save her energy to maintain the stability of the lion clan space. Tanuki? You are the Tanuki. I am a tapir, not a Tanuki. Hearing Li Yang's address, Shikaku suddenly felt as if its tail was stepped on. Like its host, Shikaku also had a violent temper. When others touched the place that it hated, that kind of crazy character would occupy its mind. A chakra quickly condensed in Shikaku's mouth, and a cyan-colored sphere quickly shot toward Li Yang. Wind release, true space jade. 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 Four vacuum jades were continuously spat out from Shikaku's mouth, directly blocking all the directions that Li Yang could dodge. She could only receive at least one of the vacuum jades. But different from what Shikaku imagined, Li Yang didn't seem to have any intention of dodging. Instead, the golden flames that were originally on her hooves and tail directly covered her entire body. The originally mysterious and domineering black lion turned into a golden lion that was as brilliant as the heavens. Before the vacuum jades touched Li Yang's body, they were directly evaporated by the golden flames burning on the surface of Li Yang's body. Chapter 3:15. Little Tanuki, looking at Shikaku who was very angry, Li Yang also called out. But she was directly interrupted by Shikaku, "Don't call me Little Tanuki. I am Taper, Taper." Seeing that there was no way to communicate with Shikaku, Li Yang could only look at Nan Gongxia, who was standing beside her, with a bit of inquiring expression. Nan Gongxia also understood Li Yang's meaning, so he could only say to Li Yang in a slightly louder voice, "Don't kill him, as long as you subdue this guy, I naturally have a way to let him enter the seal in his host body." Hearing Nan Gongxia's words, Li Yang also nodded. She made up her mind to end this battle quickly. The rising golden flame on her body became more and more active. Golden flame lines condensed above Li Yang's shoulder blades, and not long after, the flame lines weaved a pair of burning golden flame wings. Roar! Li Yang roared towards the sky, then directly shook the huge golden flame wings on her back. At the same time, Li Yang's huge body also began to slowly float in the air. Shikaku's body was relatively bloated, and it didn't have the ability to fly in the sky, so it could only look at Li Yang flying in the sky while cursing loudly. Occasionally, it would shoot vacuum jade towards Li Yang. Li Yang naturally wouldn't passively take a beating. Every time she found a flaw in Shikaku's body, Li Yang would open her mouth and shoot a burning golden flame lightning towards Shikaku. After several rounds of fighting, Li Yang was fine, but Shikaku's body had many big and small scorched holes. Even Shikaku, who had a strong recovery ability, couldn't use sand to reconstruct these wounds. If one looked carefully, one would find that the golden flame and lightning were constantly jumping on these wounds, destroying them, making Shikaku's body unable to heal. The pain made Shikaku's originally crazy heart become even crazier. If it wasn't for the lack of time, Shikaku simply wanted to shoot a steaming hot Baijidama at Li Yang. But after all, his subordinate column force was really weak, and he was also seriously injured by Li Yang, so he could only rely on the vacuum jade to vent his inner madness and resentment. "This little raccoon cat is really not cute." Li Yang looked at Shikaku as if he was looking at his own immature younger generation. Just when Shikaku was preparing to counterattack, the flames and lightning in the hole created by Li Yang's attack began to grow violently, and soon covered Shikaku's whole body. However, these flames and lightning didn't tightly stick to Shikaku's body. Instead, they intertwined and formed a huge cage that imprisoned Shikaku inside. "Hey hey hey! Nangong brat, it's time to watch your performance. I've already controlled this little raccoon cat according to your request." Nan Gongxia nodded to Li Yang, jumped a few times, and stood on Li Yang's forehead, then pointed at the looming figure of Gaara in between Shikaku's eyebrows. This Shikaku didn't completely break away from its seal, but because its Jinchuriki Gaara used a ninjutsu called feigning sleep technique to suppress its consciousness, Shikaku gained control of its body, and then condensed it into the appearance of Shikaku with the help of sand. But in the end, as a subordinate of column force, Gaara is still the core of Ichibi Shikaku. As long as we can awaken Gaara from his slumber through external attacks, everything will be solved. Although according to my original idea, even if I kill this child, it doesn't matter. But after all, this child is the son of Kazekage, and he should be treated with respect. Now, let me end this farce and put an end to everything. With that, Nangongja held his Heaven's Disaster Sword, jumped down from Li Yang's head, and stood directly in the middle of Shikaku's eyebrows, looking at Gaara, who was covered by a thin layer of sand. And Shikaku, who had been imprisoned, also understood the intention of the ant called Little Friend by the Black Lion. Shikaku, who was unwilling to return to the imprisonment, tried to shake his body so that Nangongja couldn't wake up the sleeping Gaara. However, Li Yang's technique was naturally extremely effective. After discovering that Shikaku, who was imprisoned by him, began to struggle, Li Yang immediately controlled his technique and gradually began to reduce the range of Shikaku's activities. The damage of the golden flames and lightning to Shikaku was obvious, so Shikaku also avoided contact with such power. In this case, Shikaku could only gradually reduce the size of its movements. In the end, it even used its fat body to sway from side to side, which looked very funny. Nangongja naturally wasn't affected by Shikaku, and his feet were like a pair of nails stuck on Shikaku's body. Steadily holding his Heaven's Disaster Sword, he gently cut open the thin film formed by the sand covering Gaara's body, stretched out his hand, and directly slapped Gaara's face, but Gaara didn't seem to have any reaction at all, and his eyes were still closed. Nangongja didn't believe it, and swung his arm to give Gaara a big slap, but Gaara still didn't wake up. Ha ha ha. Are you dumbfounded? This kid's dozing technique is a ninjutsu that seals his mind. Even you can't wake Gaara up, because Gaara's heart is unwilling to respond to your awakening. No matter how hard you try, it will be in vain. Shikaku seemed to be aware of what was happening above his head, and directly ridiculed Nangongja. But Nangongja didn't pay attention to Shikaku's trash talk. Instead, he began to think about who could have a spiritual relationship with Gaara. Ah no, resonance. Resonance. Gaara's sister and brother naturally couldn't do it. After all, Gaara didn't open his heart to these two relatives before. Then, he had to find someone who was very similar to Gaara's experience, or someone who Gaara thought was similar. Gaara was a tailed beast, column force. Gaara had a Kazekage as his father. Gaara had always been rejected by others. Is there anyone here who meets these conditions? Wait, column force? Kage's father? Rejected by others? Nangongja waved his hand and shouted to the people below him, "Don't worry. Naruto. Come here. Give Gaara a friendly punch." Chapter 316. When Gaara opened his eyes again, he found that his sister Temari and his brother Kankuro were looking at him anxiously. Sasuke and Naruto, who had just fought fiercely with him, were also staring at him closely. Shikaku, who was originally very disobedient in his body and always used his will to attack Gaara's consciousness, also fell into a rare silence. Everything was so beautiful, the only flaw was that his left cheek seemed to be a little swollen and painful. Gaara, are you okay? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere on your body? Do you need me to find a medical ninja to check it for you? Tempura's fear of Gaara was gone, and she looked at her brother with love and tenderness. Although Kankuro was still a little timid, the caring look in his eyes was completely different from the fear he had before. Although Gaara's memory was a little fuzzy because he completely liberated Shikaku's consciousness in his body, Gaara knew that he didn't do anything special before. But now his brother and sister's attitude towards him was really a huge reversal. Gaara became a little unprepared. Gaara. Looking at Gaara, Naruto suddenly said to Gaara, "You and I are the same kind of people, but we took different paths. Beside me, more and more friends and relatives walked down the path with me. But around you, everyone is drifting further and further away. Temari and Kankuro have already told me some things about you. And I also told Temari and Kankuro about my experience. I don't know if you want to try it. Try to open your heart and try to accept others into your heart. No one can guarantee that they won't get hurt, but no one can just be an Azura who only loves himself. Your elder sister, your elder brother, they truly love and care for you, but you cast them aside time and time again. This time, not only give them a chance, but also give yourself a chance to not be so lonely. Naruto's words entered Gaara's ears one by one. Since Naruto could say such a thing, and even Gaara's own understanding of his name, it was obvious that he already knew Gaara in his heart. If someone else said such a thing, Gaara would definitely not hear it. But now without Shikaku's disturbance, Gaara's emotions have gradually calmed down, and Naruto's very similar experience and their current different situations also made Gaara agree with Naruto's statement. But for Gaara, the betrayal of his uncle Yakushimaru was a deep thorn in Gaara's heart, making him unwilling to open his heart. Temari and Kankuro were naturally the people who knew Gaara the best. The two also overcame their fear and came to Gaara's side and slowly held his hands. Gaara looked at the two people in surprise, and even released his murderous aura towards them tentatively. Temari and Kankuro's faces turned pale because of the murderous aura, but they didn't loosen their grip on Gaara's hands at all. Instead, they held his hands even tighter. Gaara, Gaara, Temari and Kankuro still firmly held their brother's hands. Over the years, the two naturally knew what kind of environment their brother lived in. But for various reasons, Temari and Kankuro could only be in awe of Gaara and alienate their younger brother. But now, the two had obviously decided to get along well with their brother and let them be filled with the affection that a family should have. Brother. Sister, Gaara's murderous aura gradually converged. Although there was still some confusion and bewilderment in his tone, he still called out to Temari and Kankuro. Hearing Gaara's call, Temari and Kankuro vaguely saw Gaara's innocent appearance when he was still young. The feelings in their hearts became stronger and stronger, and they directly hugged Gaara in their arms. Naruto, Sasuke, and the others naturally understood and left, leaving some space for the three siblings to reconcile. Since then, Orochimaru, the main participant of the wood industry collapse plan, was seriously injured and left the wood leaf. The two double-headed snakes as the main offensive force were also eliminated by Gamabunta. The Sand Ichibi column force was also directly defeated by Gaara. This attack against the Woodleaf came to an end. Woodleaf also lost a lot of Chunin and Genin, and many Jonin were also injured. In order to prevent Orochimaru from using the Edo Tensei to summon the first Hokage and second Hokage, Sarutobi sacrificed himself and cast the Forbidden Book, Shiki Fujin, at the cost of his own life, allowing the souls of the first Hokage and second Hokage to rest in peace. San Jonin Baki was also shocked when he learned that the Sand Kazekage was dead, and that Orochimaru was the one who gave orders to the Sand Ninja during this time. After many negotiations with Woodleaf, a new peace agreement was signed. However, when Baki walked out of the Hokage's office building, his gloomy face was enough to prove that the Sand Ninja also spent a lot of money to stabilize Woodleaf. Woodleaf announced Orochimaru's evil deeds to the whole ninja world the day after the battle and issued a kill order. But strangely, Woodleaf didn't send their elite ninjas to suppress Orochimaru. This kill order was as pale and weak as a piece of white paper. After this, Woodleaf naturally had a diplomatic game with the Land of Wind and the Land of Rice. Nangongja didn't know what kind of compromise was made, and he had no interest in it. After this battle, Nangongja's first appearance was at the funeral of 3 generations of Hokage. Nangongja didn't go early, wearing a black suit. Watergate, as the disciple of 3 generations of Hokage, had already started a long speech. After listening for a long time, Nangongja didn't listen to anything. His mind was still echoing what 3 generations of Hokage said in front of him when he first arrived at Woodleaf. As long as there are leaves flying, there will be a fire burning, and the fire will shine on the village, and then new leaves will sprout again. Today, as a rather old leaf of Woodleaf, 3 generations of Hokage has left the branch. But the fallen leaves still fell to the ground, contributing their own nutrients to the new leaf. In the future, wood leaf will still be the most dazzling pearl in the ninja world. Chapter 317. The funeral of the three generations wasn't that complicated. After Watergate finished his speech, the Woodleaf ninjas sent flowers to the three generations one by one, and the funeral was over. After all, a ninja's profession doesn't allow a person to be overly immersed in sorrow. After all, the ninjas who died in this war were buried together with Sandame-sama. Everyone still has to sort out their own mood and re-immerse themselves in the endless missions without stopping. Watergate walked slowly in the direction of his office, wanting to continue to deal with some diplomatic affairs with the Land of Wind and Land of Rice. But before he walked to the place, he saw Nangongja standing opposite him. "I have completed the thing you asked me to do, so when are you going to complete the thing I asked you to do?" Nangongja didn't care that there were other people standing beside Watergate. Although these people can be said to be Watergate's confidants, some things shouldn't be said so openly. Minato waved his hand to signal the people behind him to retreat for the time being. Minato also said to Nangongja with a serious expression, "You don't have to worry about this. When Woodleaf was attacked, Root didn't send a single person. According to your information, Danzo's Root even provided some help to Orochimaru when he attacked Woodleaf. This Danzo keeps saying how much he loves Woodleaf every day, and how willing he is to contribute to the village. But now, because of his own selfish desires, Woodleaf suffered an unprecedented loss since the founding of the village. It seems that he is being generous to others. Originally, I still had some consideration for his friendship with the three generations and the elders of Kiba. But now, Danzo has obviously crossed the line. Even without you, I won't easily forgive this guy. Once I need you to participate in the operation, I will inform you." Watergate's words left no room for negotiation. It was as if he had placed Danzo in the position of an enemy. Without the restraints of the three generations, coupled with Watergate's dislike of Danzo's methods, it was time to pull out the thorn in Danzo's Woodleaf. "Since you already have a plan, then I don't have to say anything more. I still have due trust in you, Watergate." Presumably, Watergate already knows that I have a relatively close relationship with the Blood Cloak Pavilion. If you need me, I can still fight for some power in the Blood Cloak Pavilion. Nangongja told Watergate that he had some connections with the Blood-Robed Pavilion. After all, such a thing could not be concealed. Although the core disciples of Blood Garment Pavilion were cultivators of internal energy, which was completely different from the ninjas who practiced chakra, they still used civilians who did not have any cultivation base in some industries. It was too easy for these ordinary people who worked in the industries of Blood Garment Pavilion to plant spies in them. It was not too difficult to get some information about Nangongja. Therefore, in order to have a better foundation for the cooperation between Watergate and himself, Nangongja directly told him some information that Watergate might know about him. Nangongja's meaning was clear to Watergate, and Nangongja also knew a little about Watergate's idea. Although the two people may not have the same starting point, their goal was the same, which was to take down Danzo, the source of evil, of Woodleaf. After that, Nangongja returned to his home. Watergate looked at Nangongja's back and side before leaving. In the end, Watergate and Nangongja were two different kinds of people. Watergate was a person who could face all kinds of hardships and endure for his own ideals. As long as it was for his ideals, he would not hesitate to sacrifice his life or even his wife and children. Compared to Watergate, Nangongja was a little simpler. From beginning to end, Nangongja wanted to protect his family and let his family live a better life. For example, if Watergate and Nangongja saved the world. Watergate saved the world because the world needed to be saved, and he happened to have the ability to save the world, so the world was saved. For Nangongja, whether the world became better or worse, Nangongja didn't care so much. Anyway, he had a certain amount of strength, and it was enough to protect the few people he wanted to protect. When the crisis swept across the world, Nan Gongzhe would also risk his life to protect the people he cherished. In general, Watergate was a more idealistic person, and Nan Gongzhe was a more secular person. For Nan Gongzhe, saving the world was just something he did to protect the people around him. Nan Gongzhe sat quietly at home. For the past few days, Watergate hadn't informed Nan Gongzhe about his plan. However, Nan Gongzhe didn't care at all. After all, the Woodleaf had just experienced a war, and as Nan Gongzhe's target, Danzhou, was deeply rooted in the Woodleaf. It wasn't easy to remove him. Therefore, Nan Gongzhe was prepared to wait. After all, he had waited for so long, and a little more time wouldn't make a difference. However, since Danzhou was being closely watched by Watergate, Nan Gongzhe was slightly relieved. He brought his sister Nangong Ro, Mashiro, and little Linger to Nangong's residence. Anyway, Nan Gongzhe had been staying at home all this time. If there was any trouble, Nan Gongzhe could protect the girls and leave immediately. The three girls were naturally very happy to be able to return to the environment they were most familiar with. From time to time, they would bring Yuri Koyuri of the Uchiha family to stay for a while. After all, Yuri Koyuri was relatively unknown compared to the Uchiha couple. Even if she was occasionally seen, as long as she didn't wear the Uchiha clan's clothes or reveal her Sharingan, she wouldn't be exposed at all. So Nan Gongzhe didn't have much psychological pressure. On this day, Nan Gongzhe, Nangong Ro, Mashiro, little Linger, and the newly arrived Yuri Koyuri were sitting together for dinner. There was a knock on the door of Nangong's residence. Before Nan Gongzhe could react, little Linger ran to the door and opened it. You are? Sasuke hadn't seen little Linger before, or maybe he had seen her before. After all, it had been a long time, so he didn't have any impression of her. A very cute girl suddenly appeared in his sensei's house. He didn't expect his sensei to have such a habit of keeping a mistress. Chapter 318. Ignoring Sasuke's question, little Linger carefully looked at Sasuke. She seemed to be muttering something, but Sasuke didn't hear it clearly. You're Sasuke, right? You're much cuter than I thought. It seems like you're here to find brother Nangong. Come on, we just finished dinner. If you haven't had dinner yet, you can also eat here. For a long time, little Linger and the other two girls lived with Uchiha Fugaku couple and Yuri Koyuri in the Lion clan's different space. The few of them were quite familiar with each other. After all, they had been seeing each other all this time. Naturally, Linger also met the Fugaku couple, who were Sasuke's parents. When they arrived at Konoha before, Minamiya also deliberately told the girls some things about himself in Konoha, including teaching Sasuke some old swordsmanship. So, with such a combination of factors, little Linger recognized Sasuke standing at the door. Although Sasuke was a little confused, he still followed little Linger to the living room of Nangong's house. At this moment, Nan Gongzhe, Mashiro, and Nangong Ro were all sitting in the living room and seemed to be chatting, while Yuri Koyuri cleaned up the dishes and went to the kitchen to wash them. Looking at the three girls in front of him, even Sasuke, who has never had feelings for men and women, felt that the girls in front of him were so beautiful, each with their own merits. Mashiro looked very quiet and elegant, her long hair casually scattered on her shoulders, and her white clothes made people feel that she had a kind of water-like gentleness and tranquility. But Mashiro's eyes were particularly full of heroic spirit. The combination of tenacity and gentleness was so clever, forming a unique beauty. Nangong Ro sat closer to Nangongzhe than Mashiro. Because the two have been together for a long time, it was inevitable that there were some similarities in temperament. It was like the sun and the moon gathered together. Although they had different colors, they were dazzling from the same root. In addition, Nangong Ro's green clothes showed a kind of vitality that was difficult to hide, like a green grass full of vitality in the spring, making everyone feel a kind of vitality in their heart. As for Xiao Ling Er, who had just brought him in, she was wearing a light yellow dress. Mashiro and Nangong Ro's dresses were plain with no embroidery, but little Linger's dress was embroidered with 100 flowers in spring pattern. Her long hair was tied up in a delicate bun, looking very delicate, making people feel that they couldn't help but love her. Her face with a little baby fat and slightly smiling lips were very likable. My God! So my Nangong sensei is actually a peerless sex fiend? He actually hid these 3 peerless beauties in his home. Moreover, they were completely unknown. If he hadn't coincidentally bumped into these girls this time, he didn't know when he would be able to see these girls hidden by his teacher. Greetings to Nangong sensei, and all of you, and all of you. Sasuke naturally greeted Nangong and the 3 girls out of courtesy, but when he called them, teacher's wife, Nangong and the 3 girls' faces changed directly. Nangong was a little scared, but then he was relieved. After all, Sasuke shouldn't have seen Nangong Ro and the other 2 girls, so it was reasonable to misunderstand. The other 3 girls weren't as simple as Nangong thought. Needless to say, little Linger was almost considered as Nangong watched her grow up. For Nangong, she was more like an elder brother and a younger sister. However, Mashiro and Nangong Ro's faces were quietly red at the moment. Mashiro was naturally needless to say. Since Nangong directly fell out with Nangong in order to save her, her heart was almost hanging on Nangong. However, Nangong had never valued this kind of love so much, so she could only quietly hide these thoughts in her heart and didn't dare to say it out loud. Nangong Ro grew up under Nangong's care. Among the people present, only Nangong Ro knew Nangong the earliest and knew him the longest. In the past, Nangong Ro's attachment to Nangong could be explained by the friendship between siblings. However, Nangong Ro's heart was clear that Nangong wasn't her biological brother, so all of this was worth carefully thinking about, wasn't it? The 2 girls looked at Nangong with slightly resentful eyes at the same time, but Nangong didn't know anything and thought that he had offended the 2 girls. However, after all, in front of his half-disciple, Nangong couldn't easily lose face, so he could only use his eyes to appease the 2 girls. Sasuke? A voice suddenly sounded, directly breaking the slightly awkward atmosphere between everyone. The one who spoke was naturally Yuri Koyuri from the Uchiha clan, and Sasuke also looked at the person who called his name. You are Yuri Koyuri, Nei-san? Although Yuri Koyuri and Sasuke were not descendants of the same branch, Yuri Koyuri was also known as a genius after all. Fugaku, as the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, also praised Yuri Koyuri at some family banquets and festivals, so Sasuke also had some impression of her. He forgot to tell Yuri Koyuri not to come out and meet Sasuke, otherwise, many things wouldn't be so easy to hide. He quickly coughed and gave Yuri Koyuri a look, and Yuri Koyuri naturally quickly realized his gaffe and quickly suppressed his surprise after meeting Sasuke. Are you curious why I'm still alive? Yuri Koyuri naturally saw the doubt in Sasuke's eyes, so Yuri Koyuri decided to directly speak first to block the possibility of Sasuke getting to the bottom of the matter. I was performing a mission outside the village on that day, so I didn't stay in the village. At that time, I was in a team with the sister who just came to the door to pick you up, and she is Nangong, sensei's sister. At that time, for various reasons, Nangong, sensei came to find little Linger, and just happened to bump into the ninja sent by the mastermind behind the scenes to kill me, so I was saved. Yuri Koyuri's words were not finished, but he was directly interrupted by Sasuke. Mastermind behind the scenes? Although Sasuke guessed the truth of the matter many times in his heart, someone controlling his brother and making Itachi do this series of things was naturally one of Sasuke's guesses, but he never expected to hear such a statement from the mouth of the Uchiha survivor, Yuri Koyuri. Nangong and the other 3 girls looked at Yuri Koyuri with black lines on their faces. Is this intentional or not? They didn't know that Yuri Koyuri was such a big mouth, but now he actually leaked so much important information in just a few words. They simply didn't know how to smooth things over perfectly. Chapter 319. Since it was caused by Yuri Koyuri, it was natural for Yuri Koyuri to solve it himself. He took Sasuke directly to the side room of Nangongja's house. The two of them whispered for a long time, and it seemed that things were finally clear. Sasuke and Yuri Koyuri went to Nangongja together. Nangongja wasn't worried about whether Yuri Koyuri knew that Uchiha Fugaku and his wife were still alive, because this news was different from the one-sided information revealed by Yuri Koyuri before. As long as he dared to leak a little bit of information, it would have a great impact. Yuri Koyuri would never say it so easily. As for how Yuri Koyuri fooled Sasuke in the end, Nangongja wasn't that interested. In contrast, Nangongja was more concerned about the reason why Sasuke came to his house late at night. Tell me. Nangongja didn't talk nonsense with Sasuke. He gestured to Yuri Koyuri to let Yuri Koyuri temporarily leave some space for the two of them. When only Nangongja and Sasuke were left in the room, Nangongja continued, I know your character. As long as you can solve a problem by yourself, you will never bother others. Today, you came at this time, which is enough to prove that the current matter has a lot to do with you. And you don't have the confidence that you can do it perfectly and leave no regrets. When Sasuke heard Nangongja's words, he didn't feel that his thoughts were exposed. Instead, he felt that this was the right thing to do. After all, whether it was personal strength or life experience, Nangongja was much richer than Sasuke, a young genin. On the contrary, if Nangongja didn't see such a thing clearly, Sasuke would slightly despise Nangongja. I think Nangong-sensei should know about Orochimaru, right? Sasuke didn't answer Nangongja's question directly. Instead, he seemed to be evasive. Orochimaru? Of course, Sasuke wouldn't mention Orochimaru for no reason, a rebellious Sannin in Sasuke's generation. Nangongja nodded and motioned Sasuke to continue. During the second round of the Chunin exam, this man named Orochimaru left this curse mark on my neck. I believe that with Woodleaf's investigative methods, this kind of thing can be easily found out, so teacher, you should have received this news as well. Not long ago, several people claiming to be Orochimaru subordinates came to me. They told me that the curse mark on my neck is the most powerful curse mark of heaven. As long as I follow them and join Orochimaru, I will be able to obtain the true power of the curse mark of heaven. Moreover, I can also get the guidance of Orochimaru, who is a Kage-level powerhouse, and get the resources to make me stronger quickly. Just now, Yuri Koyuri-san told me something, but I know that you must be hiding something. But I don't mind, because it's all because of my own lack of ability that you hide things from me like this. Now, this is an opportunity for me to take my destiny in my own hands and let the truth of the world appear in front of me. I came here this time to ask Nangong-sensei to help me hide the surveillance from Woodleaf's Umbu, so that I have a chance to leave Woodleaf and meet Orochimaru. Sasuke faced Nangongja with sincerity. He put down all the unnecessary pride of others and just put himself in the identity of a junior to communicate with Nangongja. Sasuke, I also have some of my own intelligence channels. A long time ago, I also worked for Orochimaru for a period of time. At that time, I had already noticed how cold this man's heart was. After all these years, this man had become more and more unpredictable, and some of the information I got seems to say that Orochimaru met your brother in an organization and was severely defeated by your brother. So Orochimaru has been spying on the Uchiha clan's unique Sharingan. And you naturally became Orochimaru's first choice target. I won't advise you not to go to Orochimaru, but I hope you can be aware of it. Because if you go, although you may get more than what you can get in Woodleaf, on the other side of the scale of benefits is your life. As long as you understand this, I can arrange for you to leave Woodleaf smoothly. At least for 30 minutes, you won't be discovered by Woodleaf's Umbu and patrolling ninjas. Nangongja didn't advise Sasuke not to do such a betrayal of the village. After all, Woodleaf in Nangongja's mind is not so sacred and inviolable. And for Sasuke's character, it is indeed difficult to get rapid growth in wood leaf. Nangongja knows this, Sasuke knows it even more. Only under the coercion of Orochimaru can Sasuke get the growth he deserves. Thank you, sensei. This time, either I return with glory or I die in a foreign land. I don't care about these two endings. I know how powerless I am. When my brother killed my entire clan, I was powerless to stop him. When the ninja named Haku injured my teammates, I was still powerless to stop him. After that, there were many similar things that happened. Even if there are deep wounds all over my body, it's not as painful as this feeling of powerlessness. So, I decided to leave wood leaf. I'm sorry sensei, not only have to accept my rebellious decision, but also help me complete such a difficult request. Sasuke said, but stood up and bowed deeply to Nangongja. Nangongja stood up and helped Sasuke up, slightly shook his head and said to Sasuke, "It's a pity that you and I don't have a master-disciple relationship. I can only teach you some swordsmanship. However, I do have some feelings for him, and he can be considered half a disciple of mine." People often say that the relationship between a master and a disciple is no different from the relationship between a father and a son. You are like my nephew. This kind of thing is just a small matter for me, even if it's to help you get revenge, it's just a small matter. But I still hope that you can find all the answers by yourself, only then can you really grow. I hope you don't disappoint my expectations, and can grow up to be a man of indomitable spirit. Nangongja's words directly put himself in the position of Sasuke's elder. And out of respect for Nangongja, Sasuke also carefully remembered Nangongja's words in his heart. He nodded slightly and smiled at Nangongja. Unlike the slightly stiff smile in the past, Sasuke's smile at this moment was extraordinarily warm. It was like finding a pair of warm hands to push his back, so that he can bravely move forward on the thorny road. Chapter 320. Looking at Sasuke's departing figure, Nangongja slowly closed the gate of his courtyard. Miyagi. Sasuke can be regarded as half of your disciple. Are you willing to push him directly into the fire pit? Mashiro, who was standing next to Nangongja, said to Nangongja with a little worry in his eyes. Over the years, Nangongja has seen many amazing people, but the only one who can inherit a little of Nangongja's legacy is the child of the Uchiha family who just came out of Nangongja's house. Mashiro has received a lot of confidential information in the Blood Cloak Pavilion over the years, and he has a deep understanding of Orochimaru. Orochimaru is a ruthless beast in human form. As long as it is beneficial to him, he will open his fangs and pounce on the target fiercely. With Sasuke's character and experience, in the hands of Orochimaru, it's inevitable that he will be eaten by Orochimaru. However, Nangongja didn't seem to agree with Mashiro's words. He waved his hand and walked into the house with Mashiro. After sitting down casually, he said to Mashiro, "I taught Sasuke for a while, but do you know what kind of swordsmanship I taught him? It is the most ruthless and decisive of all the swordsmanship I learned, the remnant of the fatal 13 swords. Swordsmanship is the reflection of a person's heart. Sasuke will not become a loyal dog raised by wood leaf. He is most suitable to be a goshawk soaring in the sky and hunting in the sky. Wood leaf is not the place to teach a goshawk, and I am not suitable to teach a goshawk." The various grievances between Orochimaru and Sasuke and Itachi are destined to intertwine and collide with each other unexpectedly. Let's see how much impact Sasuke, a chess piece, will have on the world's general trend and those high and mighty people. You go and inform the Blood Cloak Pavilion's disciples lurking in the wood leaf and cooperate with Sasuke to leave the wood leaf if necessary. When Mashiro heard Nangongja's words, although he didn't quite understand, he still followed Nangongja's instructions and informed the disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion in the wood leaf. Time passed quietly, and finally, it was the day when Sasuke and the Sound Ninja met. Sasuke also directly went into battle, and left the old house he had lived in for more than 10 years without taking anything. Originally, he was going to leave wood leaf directly, but Sasuke's feet didn't seem to listen to him. He slowly deviated from the route he should take, and actually walked in the direction of his teammate Sakura's house. Sasuke actually heard Sakura's confession at that time when his memory was blurred by the curse of the heavens. Before that, from the two of them attending Ninja Academy at the same time to performing tasks in a team, Sakura also expressed her love again and again. Sasuke himself didn't know what it was like to love a person, but Sakura's care still left a shallow shadow in Sasuke's lonely heart. When Sasuke was about to leave the wood leaf, he didn't know if he could return safely again. Sasuke still couldn't suppress the emotions in his heart and slowly walked to Sakura's house. Knock knock, Sasuke knocked on the wooden door of Sakura's house with his hand, and soon someone answered inside. After the door was opened, a woman with the same cherry-colored long hair, but obviously older, opened the door. "Hello, this is Haruno's house. What can I do for you?" The person who opened the door was naturally Sakura's mother, Mabi. Although Mabi occasionally saw the photos of Sakura's three-person team, she didn't pay much attention to it and didn't recognize Sasuke's identity for a while. Sasuke respectfully saluted Mabi, and then introduced himself to Mabi. "I'm in the same team as Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke from Team 7. Today, I suddenly wanted to come and chat with Sakura. I didn't inform you in advance, so I took the liberty to disturb you." Hearing Sasuke's name, Mabi naturally knew that the boy in front of her was the Prince Charming that her daughter had been thinking about. Carefully looking at Sasuke, Mabi found that the child looked a little cold. She didn't know whether it was intentional or unintentional. Although he had a lot of attraction for young people like Sakura, Mabi's heart wasn't so comfortable. After all, these children were only 11 or 12 years old. It should be the time for their nature to bloom, but they were always so gloomy, which made people feel uncomfortable. And Sasuke himself was from the Uchiha clan. In the past, Uchiha could be said to be rampant in the wood leaf. There were often many people who relied on their kinship with the Uchiha clan to make trouble in Mabi's clothing store, so Mabi has always disliked those people who came from rich families. Since you are my Sakura's teammate, there is naturally no disturbance. It just so happens that Sakura is also at home. Come in and sit for a while, I will call Sakura out. Although Mabi still had a gentle demeanor, it was a kind of surface politeness that made people feel very uncomfortable, but Sasuke didn't seem to care at all, so he walked inside the room under Mabi's guidance. Not long after, Sakura finally came out of her room in the midst of the chaos. Dressed in casual clothes with some cherry blossom patterns, Sakura lost some of the heroic spirit of a ninja and gained some of the gentleness and charm of a woman. "Sasuke. I just heard Mom say that you want to talk to me." I. Sakura looked at Sasuke, who suddenly came to visit. Her heart was now in a mess, and her face was red. Naturally, she was a little nervous. After Mabi called Sakura down, she didn't avoid it at all. Instead, she looked at her daughter's embarrassed expression with great interest, which made Sakura feel even more embarrassed. Without thinking about the shyness in her heart, Sakura rushed forward, grabbed Sasuke's wrist, and pulled Sasuke all the way to her room. When Sakura came back to her senses, she found that she and Sasuke were already standing in the room where she had just dressed up in a hurry. "Sasuke. Sakura immediately wanted to explain to Sasuke, but she found that Sasuke was looking at her very seriously, and the words that were in her throat were also held back. "I'm leaving Woodleaf, What did you say?" Sakura seemed to be disturbed by Sasuke's words for a while, but then she looked at Sasuke and said, "Are you going to travel outside the village or practice? If you came to find me to go with you, it's not impossible." "No, I'm leaving the village, and it's a long time. I have asked Nangong-sensei, and he also agreed with my decision. I came this time because I don't know if I can come back safely, so I came to see you." Chapter 321. Sasuke walked on the road in a daze. He didn't remember what he said to Sakura after that. Because in Sasuke's mind, all he could see was Sakura crying like a pear blossom in the rain, looking at him with tears in her eyes. At that moment, Sasuke's heart was really soft. At that moment, Sasuke really hoped that he could tell Sakura that he wouldn't leave and that he would stay. But Sasuke still suppressed this thought in his heart. If he didn't have so much pain and hatred, he would definitely stay. But now, his brother was wronged, and his family members were killed. Sasuke felt that he couldn't just care about the love in front of him. Sasuke hoped that he could get enough power to protect everything he wanted to protect. After all, people don't live just for themselves. You finally came. Although Sasuke's thoughts weren't so clear, he still walked out of the Woodleaf village according to the route that Nangongja gave him. Waiting for Sasuke outside the Woodleaf village were the 4 sound ninjas who set up a barrier around the battlefield of Watergate, Yuan Fei, and Orochimaru during the Chunin exam. The one who spoke to Sasuke was a guy with light blue-gray hair and even painted his lips blue. He looked a little evil. "Let me introduce myself. My name is Zukin, and this is..." Zukin had just reached out his hand to his companions and wanted to tell Sasuke the names of his other 3 companions, but he was interrupted by Sasuke's cold glance. "I was invited by Orochimaru to increase my strength, not to make friends with a group of small fries like you. Since you know my identity and know that Orochimaru values me, then put your attitude right. Got it?" On Sasuke's face, there was unconcealable coldness and contempt, which made the 4 sound ninjas, who were a little arrogant and didn't like Sasuke, a little uncomfortable. "You bastard! Who do you think you are? How dare you be so disrespectful to Orochimaru-sama? I'm going to beat you up." Although the 4 of them were women, Toyo, who was the most irritable, also lost her temper directly at Sasuke. But Jigubo walked to Toyo's side, stretched out his thick hand and grabbed Toyo's arm, indicating that Toyo shouldn't be so rude. But Toyo didn't appreciate it at all. Instead, she looked at Jigubo, who grabbed her arm with some disgust and said loudly, "You fat man, how dare you touch this old lady? Believe it or not, I will cut off your fat hand." Zilangfang was very disgusted with people who insulted others with dirty words. When he became the one who was insulted, he became even angrier. He was ready to argue or fight with Toyo, but at this time, a powerful momentum rose from Sasuke's body. The heavenly curse seal, which was originally sealed by Kakashi, was also in a state of activation. Sasuke's face was also covered with this tadpole-like black pattern, and Sasuke's skin, which was covered by the black pattern, also became a little gray color, which was very scary. The 4 sound ninjas stared at Sasuke tightly, and they were very surprised. These 4 people all have curses on their bodies, but even if they have awakened to the second state of curses, they don't have the powerful momentum of the first state of heavenly curse seal in the semi-activated state on Sasuke's body. "I said. Didn't you hear what I said? You are just here to perform your task and bring me to Orochimaru's location. If you can't do it, I don't mind cleaning you up one by one, and then go to Orochimaru." Sasuke changed his previous arrogance and unapproachable. Instead, he became extraordinarily arrogant. Obviously, it was a subjective change to make himself grow smoothly in Orochimaru's camp. Although the 4 sound ninjas weren't good people, they were very clear about Orochimaru's importance to Sasuke. They also knew that Sasuke may become their new leader after a certain degree of training. So they patiently explained to Sasuke how to activate the second state of Heavenly Curse Seal and some subsequent arrangements. Although Sasuke was slightly surprised that activating the second state of Heavenly Curse Seal required people to fake their death, he still agreed to this arrangement. He took the pill and lay down in the wooden barrel brought by the 4 sound ninjas. Sakura, who was in the wood leaf, also found her other teammate, Uzumaki Naruto, after a painful struggle. She informed Naruto that Sasuke wanted to leave the wood leaf. Watergate was also at home. He heard that the matter involved the descendants of the Uchiha clan and Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, and also took it seriously. After repeatedly telling Naruto not to act without authorization, he immediately changed his clothes and summoned some ninjas to the Hokage office to select personnel to rescue and intercept the Sound Ninja. In Sakura's face, Naruto decisively violated the orders of his father, Watergate, and went directly to the houses of several friends who had a good relationship with him. He called them out and started the drama of the 12 roaches of the wood leaf, incomplete version, united with the 3 sand siblings, changed clothes, vs the 4 sound ninjas, plus Kimimaro. There's no need to talk about the various stories one by one. We only need to know that most of the people in the wood leaf who were called by Naruto to recall Sasuke were seriously injured, and Naruto also returned to the wood leaf the next morning. Wood leaf also seemed to be preparing to add Sasuke to the list of traitors, but Naruto desperately let his father temporarily let Sasuke go, and didn't add Sasuke's name to the list of Umbu's crusade forces. After the dust settled, Nangongja also quietly came to the Hokage office. Standing in the Hokage office, Watergate was sitting in his seat and looking at Nangongja with a smile. Before Sasuke left the wood leaf, the last place he visited was your house. It seems that you should be very familiar with all this. So why didn't you stop this little Uchiha guy from leaving the wood leaf? Facing Watergate's question, Nangongja didn't feel ashamed at all. Instead, he said to Watergate, since Woodleaf betrayed me, I decided not to work for a village like Woodleaf anymore. Between you and me, it's just some transactional cooperation, but Sasuke is my half-disciple. He wants to grow and become stronger. What reason do I have to stop him? Chapter 322. Nangongja didn't care about Woodleaf at all, and Watergate also understood that Woodleaf did wrong to Nangongja, so for a while, he didn't know what reason to find to refute Nangongja's words. He could only change the topic and continue to talk to Nangongja about Sasuke. Well, after all, Sasuke's matter has already happened. Woodleaf has also done what they should do, and it can be regarded as the most benevolent. In fact, the only remaining descendant of Uchiha in Woodleaf is also a big problem to some extent. I don't need to say some of the reasons, you should also understand. Although the Uchiha clan is not dominant, once Uchiha Sasuke knows something he shouldn't know, it will be very bad. After all, Sasuke and his brother are still very different. Watergate's words were a bit cruel, but it was also from the perspective of Woodleaf Hokage. There was nothing to condemn, it's just that their positions were different. The brothers of the Uchiha family, who knows how many twists and turns after this to usher in the final stability, although Nangongja and Sasuke have a lot of fate, it's just that. It's not enough for Nangongja to pour out his heart to Sasuke, so Nangongja didn't care much about how Watergate dealt with Sasuke. Instead, he said to Watergate, "You called me over so secretly, I don't think it's just to tell me how to deal with a child like Sasuke, who has a special identity, right? Let's talk business directly, how about it, do you need my help?" Hearing Nangongja's words, Watergate smiled, and then said to Nangongja, "Indeed, the time has come, we do need to prepare to start the operation. As for your power over me, I don't need it for the time being. After all, Danzo is one of Woodleaf's people. No matter if he is good or evil, he should be punished by Woodleaf. I'm sure Nangongja isn't the kind of person who would stick to killing his enemies, right? So, when the time comes, you just need to follow us. When Danzo's side has a high-level combatant that restricts our movements, there's no need to rush to make a move." When Nangongja heard Watergate's words, he understood that Woodleaf treated Danzo's matters as his own and did not want others to interfere. To Nangongja, as long as Danzo was no longer a threat to his family and friends, it did not matter if he died or was imprisoned for life. Nangongja cupped his hand slightly towards Watergate, then said, "That's good, as long as the situation calls for it, I'll naturally be on call. I'm also very interested in what will happen to Danzo in the end. Just let me know when the time comes. If there's nothing important, then I'll leave first." "Wait." Seeing that Nangongja was about to leave, Watergate raised his hand to stop Nangongja from leaving. With a little embarrassment on his face, he said to Nan Gongzhi, "I do have something to trouble you with, just say it." Watergate stretched out his finger and scratched his eyebrows slightly, a little embarrassed. But after a few times, he continued, "You know, Naruto gathered a group of his companions before to stop Sasuke from betraying Woodleaf. But the result was not so good. Many of Naruto's friends were seriously injured, and Naruto himself blamed himself for not being able to bring Sasuke back. During this time, the child's mood has become very depressed, and he is not like his original self at all. Shina Kushina and I have been persuading him for a long time, but the effect is not so good. After thinking about it, the only person in Woodleaf who can persuade Naruto well and make him listen to his words is probably you. So, I hope you can come with me to my house and persuade Naruto. After all, he is my child. Seeing him so depressed every day makes my heart uncomfortable." In the end, even Nan Gongzhi could see the deep worry in Watergate's eyes. Although Naruto has always had some resistance to Minato, it's still a pity for him. But for his child, Watergate completely gave his everything to Naruto. Just like now, Watergate and Nan Gongzhi actually had a pure interest relationship, but for his child, Watergate could still put down his face and ask Nan Gongzhi for such a request. "Naruto." Nan Gongzhi whispered Naruto's name softly. In fact, Nan Gongzhi didn't want to have anything to do with Woodleaf anymore. The reason why he tried so hard to get rid of Danzo's threat was because the few girls who followed him liked the environment of Woodleaf very much. Moreover, he did have some grievances with Danzo that needed to be resolved. But since Minato had put it this way, it would be unreasonable for Nan Gongzhi to reject him. Therefore, after a brief silence, Nan Gongzhi nodded and said to Minato, "Let's go." Since Naruto is a little confused for the time being, I've watched him grow up and was called uncle by him. Naturally, I should go and persuade him. I don't know if you are going to go with me or... Nan Gongzhi said, glancing at the backlog of documents on Watergate's desk. Many of the documents had a big red stamp on the cover. Obviously, they were very urgent. Watergate also understood Nan Gongzhi's meaning. He smiled and said, "It can't be helped. There are indeed a lot of things during this time. I won't go with you. Shina Kushina is at home. During this time, because Team 7 is missing a member, she has been in a state of rest. You can go directly to my house to see Naruto." Speaking of Team 7's temporary rest, Nan Gongzhi naturally thought of Kakashi, who came to his house to eat and drink when he had nothing to do. During this time, Kakashi really seemed to have nothing to do at all. When it was time to eat, he would go to Nan Gongzhi's house with his group of psychic beasts called ninja dogs. They were actually pet dogs. They came to Nan Gongzhi's house to eat. In that case, I won't disturb you from dealing with official business. I will do my best for Naruto, but these are all knots in his heart. In the end, it still depends on whether Naruto can figure it out by himself. I believe that Naruto will be able to break free from this emotion. After all, he is the child of you and Shina Kushina. Like parents, like child. Naruto will never be unable to recover from this setback. He will not stop here. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.